I would say Zoom tends to do a very good job with making things easy and intuitive. The one place where they don't, I think what happened with the meeting the other night, it wasn't my link. So, unfortunately I couldn't do anything about it, but sorry, I have to mute.
Are you screening people coming in at all? Like,
you don't need to.
No, we just,
yeah, people could have, I mean, if there's a truly offensive name, then I don't think we need to let them in. If it's hate speech, like, let's not do that. But I don't think we see that. So that the issue with the Zoom was just, you have to not only pay for it, but then you have to assign the license, and that's a separate place that you go to do.
Right.
So anyways, so that is done here. So we should be able to take more than 100 people. I think we'll test that tonight. So 7:30 a.m. I'd love to start on time. Call to order this special meeting of the Easton Board of Education at 7:31 p.m. On July 27th. Dang it, I missed it. All right. First item, I'd like to just do a quick roll call just to make sure that we're all here. I have Jeff first that I see, and I'm just
here.
Thank you, Jeff. Gretchen Goldstein.
Here.
Thank you. There's Randy. Randy, hi, how are you?
Yep, good, John.
Thank you, Randy. And Jenny. Jenny Cheetah is here. I think she's just unmuting herself. Very good. Okay. For tonight's meeting, we have a recording secretary, Liz Rimkunas. Thank you very much, Liz, for attending and acting as a recording secretary. It's very much appreciated. Okay. First item of business. Approval of minutes from our July 14th, 2020 meeting. The board chair will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the Easton Board of Education regular board meeting of July 14th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gretchen. All discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I see
5-0.
Jeff, Gretchen, Randy, Jenny, and myself all as yes. That's a 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If you would like to make comment, and just I know we have a lot of co-hosts, I'll manage the unmuting just so that we don't have people on each other's toes. If you would like to make a comment, please use your participants window to raise your hand, and we will allow you to do that from there. We will unmute your line from there. If there's anyone with public comment, now would be the time. And I see a couple of hands also raised. Yes, you can also indicate via the video.
John, are we doing a 2-minute max?
Thank you. Yes, Gretchen, we probably are going to have a lot of people. We have a very full agenda on a lot of meaty topics. So we are going to try to keep everybody to 2 minutes. I will start a timer, and I will try to be reasonable about the margins of that. I saw the first hand I saw was Rodney, and then I saw Mr. Macaluso, and then I saw Laura. So we'll go in that order for now. So I'm sorry, the name indicated is Rodney. Let me just find you and unmute you. Thank you. All right, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to read a letter. Good evening.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you to please say your first and last name and your street?
Lynn Loesch, Loesch, and on Black Rock Turnpike.
Thank you, Lynn.
I've timed myself. I'm a little over 2 minutes, but not too much longer. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lynn Loesch. I'm a para-educator at Samuel Staples, the vice president of the Union for the Paras, and a resident of Easton. I would like to speak on behalf of the paras to express our concerns with the reopening plan that has been put in place by the Board of Education. At the top of these concerns is the fact that the support staff has not been given a chance to share our ideas, nor were we consulted in the drafting of this plan. We had a Zoom meeting in June with the administration asking our feedback only on our experience with distance learning that took place this past spring, not about the reopening. We also noticed in the reopening document that the ER9 reopening committee did not include the support staff in the development of this plan. The entire staff of each school is the lifeblood that makes our school system run. How can a plan be developed without our input? We have also learned that while the parents have been surveyed regarding the return to school, the support staff has not been sent anything, nor have we been able to express our concerns. We question the effectiveness of this plan when the people that are supposed to execute it have not even been consulted. Who better than the staff to identify possible flaws or areas of risk? It truly feels like both the state and the district are rushing to return without looking at all the variables and without taking the safety of both the staff and students into account. As a paraeducator, my colleagues and I have a list of concerns that are not addressed by this plan. For example, proper social distancing for the staff as well as the students. 3 to 6 feet is not the recommendation for adults. According to the CDC, it should be at least 6 feet. Number 2, the handling of substitutes. And number 3, the paras that work closely with special ed students. These are but a few of the concerns that we wish would have been considered if we had been given the chance to express them. We want to go back to school and work with our kids again and serve this community. Connecticut has distinguished itself above many other states on our ability to tread through this crisis carefully. In all other aspects, restaurants, businesses, offices, churches, and gyms, they have all followed very strict guidelines to slowly bring things back, and that has put our state at the top of the list in slowing the spread of this virus. Why are we rushing into this place where it matters the most? It's the health and safety of our kids and staff we are talking about here. We do thank all those who work tirelessly on this daunting task. Moving forward, please consult the different staff groups and let us work on a sensible plan with the administration to come back. And if that means more remote learning for a longer period, then we will face that too and overcome it. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the paras.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I have John next. Mr. Macaluso, sorry. You should be able to.
Okay, thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Macaluso. I'm an 8th grade teacher at Helen Keller Middle School, and I'm also the Easton Education Association co-president. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the teachers and staff of Helen Keller Middle School and Samuel Staples Elementary School. First, the EEA would like to acknowledge the tremendous work that's been accomplished by the ER9 Reopening Committee. We thank you for the countless hours of research and creation of a comprehensive reopening plan. The continued work of these hardworking individuals is appreciated and integral in returning to school in a safe and responsible fashion. From the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the EEA and the administration have worked side by side to ensure the mutual safety and protection of both students and staff. This mutual respect and collegiality allowed for a revolution in the educational process seemingly overnight. The need for a comprehensive reopening plan that needed to be submitted to the State Department of Education at the end of last week forced a plan to be developed mainly by the ER9 administration. This plan was shared with the EEA presidents prior to its presentation to the public, allowing for time to briefly discuss the plan and ask clarifying questions. However, moving forward, we feel that teachers need to be a more integral part of the building-specific reopening plans. We are the professionals in the trenches who will be tasked with the responsibility of ensuring the education, health, and safety of students, as well as keeping the health and safety of ourselves and our families in the forefront of our minds. The EEA will continue to collaborate with the Board of Education, Central Office, parents, and the Eastern community to develop a safe return to school, whatever that may look like. Stemming from this strong collaborative relationship between HKMS administration, Central Office staff, and the EEA Executive Office, I was invited to tour HKMS on July 23rd and got a firsthand look at what school might look like in the fall with a full opening. To put it lightly, it is not the HKMS that I have grown to love in my 8 years as the 8th grade science teacher at Helen Keller Middle School. It was surreal. For those with the desire to fully open school for the social and emotional well-being of students, the reality the schools they will be going back to will not foster the warm, nurturing environment staff and administration have worked so hard to develop, but a much different place. Desks are in straight rows in a fixed position due to health guidelines. Teachers and students will be wearing masks, unable to read the facial expressions or cues teachers are attuned to. In some cases, students will need to stay in the same room for the entirety of their school day with little interaction with any of their peers outside of their cohort group. It will be improbable that the students will be able to work in small groups, conduct cooperative tasks, engage in meaningful conferences, and take part in activities to enhance learning. The happy, fun place we know and love will be a very different and sometimes intimidating place. With this in mind, the EEA and its members have expressed an overwhelming desire to reconnect with their students and fellow staff members again, but priority must be placed on doing this in a way that is safe and responsible for all parties. Yet a premature reopening of our school buildings causes major concerns about returning to the workplace in a manner that is safe for staff, students, and the countless families potentially affected by COVID. We conducted an informal survey of the teachers in our association, and the following are the biggest concerns: temperature checks when entering the school building, appropriate mask usage by all parties, protocol for positive COVID tests for students and staff, sick time and family days if a teacher or a family member falls ill to COVID, monitoring bathroom use and the regular cleaning of bathrooms, use of common areas and shared materials, social distancing in classrooms, hallways, and cafeteria, and the ability for students to follow these guidelines. Along with these major areas of concern, some of the other things on the minds of EEA members include a required protocol for self-quarantine following travel to states with high levels of infection for all parties, staff, students, everybody. The health and safety of teaching/support personnel entering and exited the building who are working part-time in the district and possibly visiting other schools outside of ER9 exposed to high numbers of individuals. Lastly, there has been an issue over the past years with obtaining substitutes. Given the current conditions, will there be substitutes available? Furthermore, what happens if a substitute teacher tests positive? Substitutes often work in other districts and other buildings within and out of ER9, therefore coming in contact with many individuals. All of this exposure will put the students and staff at an unnecessary risk. Finally, on the 23rd, I was also part of a group that examined the HKMS ventilation systems and their ability to circulate, filter, and possibly eliminate viral particles in the air. The purpose of a well-functioning system is to reduce airborne exposure to COVID and other harmful viruses and bacteria. The visit led to an uncertainty of the abilities of the current system to play their part in keeping students and staff safe. As we toured the building, most areas of HKMS presented questionable ventilation systems or issues with existing units. We feel it is absolutely imperative that a third-party company is brought in prior to opening. We feel it is, the company should specialize in HVAC quality control assessment as suggested in the state guidelines. We are also requesting a similar HVAC audit to be done at SSES as some of the systems function sporadically. These actions will ensure the safety of the staff, students, and ultimately the community. Research has shown that mask wearing and social distancing are the best ways to counteract and control the spread of COVID. However, the uncertainty of students' abilities to follow mask wearing and social distancing protocols means that the ventilation systems must be working effectively and efficiently as possible to play its part in keeping everyone safe. In conclusion, and I apologize if I'm going over the 2 minutes. In conclusion, the EEA and its members are a dedicated group of professional educators who long to get back to what we do best, educating and making long-lasting connections with our students and the families of Easton that we love. The pace or modality at which we return to school is the question on the minds of all parties involved. Much like our lessons as teachers, in which we scaffold for all learners, we are asking for similar support so we can achieve our educational goals within a safe environment. The EEA could not be more appreciative of the relationship we have been able to foster with administration and the Board of Education. Our hope is that this statement validates this as truth and proves our continued desire to collaboratively create an educational experience for the 2020-2021 school year that is exciting, engaging, revolutionary, and most importantly, safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Macaluso. I appreciate it. And Laura was next. There we go. And if anyone else intends to make public comment, now would be the time to raise your hand within the program.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Lara Fayek, and I live at 345 Wilson Road. I am speaking on behalf of 6 Easton families: Jenny and Drew Cheetah, myself and Osama Fayek, Tara and Saj Khan, Julia and Victor Mejia, Liz and Joe Plastina, and Devin and Judd Weibel. Discussions about race, equity, and inclusion are happening across the country, the state of Connecticut, and within the ER9 community. And we want to help Easton become a more inclusive and anti-racist system. We would like the Board of Education to accept a donation of $2,250 to Samuel Staples Elementary School in order to facilitate discussions of racial diversity in all classrooms from pre-K to 5th grade. We understand there is a timeline for a long-term full curriculum review, and we want this donation to be used both so that this conversation in the classroom can happen next year and to support the long-term goal of making our curriculum in Easton anti-racist. For this upcoming school year, we would like each grade level to select a common read-aloud book that will be embedded within the curriculum. This book should reflect racial diversity in terms of characters, settings, and experiences. We would support the purchase of other resources that teachers would find helpful with this discussion. The teachers should use the read aloud book and resources to facilitate age-appropriate discussions within the class about race, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also want to make sure our teachers are supported as they face the challenges of implicit bias and anti-racism work. We would like the remaining funds to be used for staff professional development. I have spoken with Ms. Fox-Santora and Dr. McMorrin about implementing this plan. We ask that you accept this donation as a means to bring to life the SSES mission statement by helping our children to become caring, responsible citizens, by allowing them to see and appreciate diverse identities without being colorblind. Thank you.
John, you're muted.
Thank you, Laura. And for clarification, did you say 2,250? Thank you. Okay. Thank you also. I don't know who told me I was muted. Maybe Gretchen. Thank you, Gretchen. Okay. Any additional? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to board member comment. I'll go through the list. Jeff? No? Okay, Gretchen?
No,
I'm sorry, Jeff,
nothing
did
at
you
this
have
time.
comment? None at this time. Okay, thank you. Gretchen?
No.
Randy? You can shake your head.
Sorry. Yep, all set.
Okay, and Jenny? No. Okay, very good. I have none. Moving on to discussion and possible action. First item of business is filling a board vacancy. So as I mentioned at our last board meeting, the last meeting, which was a regular board meeting, Katie Reed stepped down at that board meeting. That announcement was made, and now post 7 days, we're taking the nomination from the Democratic Town Committee because Katie Reed was a registered Democrat. The Democratic Town Committee is set to fill her position, and her position, the nomination for the board for us to vote on tonight is Devin Weibel. I'm going to turn it over to Devin to make a short statement about her interest in the role and qualifications.
Hi, thank you, John, and thank you, board and community. It's nice to meet you. I'm Devin Weibel. I've met many people. I see many familiar faces on the screen. I'm interested in this role because I have almost 2 decades of experience in education as a high school teacher, as an expert in curriculum, and also I've done a lot of work in teacher professional development, and just thinking through kind of how I could support our town, support kind of or provide some of my experience and expertise to the town and to our kids and to our teachers. It seemed like a great fit when this role came up. I think Katie has done such an amazing job, so I hope to do, just as much as she has done and live up to the amazing work that she has done in this role. I was a high school teacher, so just a quick overview of my experience. I was a high school teacher in New Jersey. I was a social studies teacher, both in a community actually very similar to Easton, a community in Montgomery, New Jersey, right outside of where I went to college. I then was a Teach for America Corps member and taught in Camden, New Jersey at Camden High School. And from there went into, about 14 years ago, left the classroom and went into work in curriculum and did core curriculum work for a number of years. And in my current role, I'm the Vice President of Academics at the Full Bloom organization, where I work primarily in K through 5 reading and math intervention and do a lot of work also in special education. When the pandemic hit in March, my company, like many schools across the country, we work in over 3,000 schools nationwide and do all of the professional development for our Department of Defense schools across the world. We had to move everything virtual, so I have a lot of experience, recent experience taking instruction virtual and remote learning, a lot of experience in reading and math instruction, and then a wealth of experience also in special education. And so just look forward to partnering with the board and with the community, as well as our teachers, staff, and professionals, and continuing to make our schools excellent in Easton and Reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. So the chair, so that we can discuss, the chair will entertain a motion to elect Devin Weibel to fill the Easton Board of Education seat previously vacated by Katie Reed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second? I think Gretchen was first. Do I have a second?
I think Jenny raised her hand.
She did. Thank you, Jenny. And discussion.
I don't know. You think she's qualified? I don't know.
Thank you, Randy. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. Hearing none, we will put the question to test. All in favor?
Aye.
I see Jeff, Gretchen, Randy, and Jenny, and I also vote yes. That is 5-0. It's unanimous. Welcome. So just so everyone knows, and I know Jenny, I'm sure already knows this, having some experience on the Board of Finance, she will need to be sworn in before she's able to vote. So I'd love to have her full participation tonight, but unfortunately she has to go and be sworn in. But she's on tonight and will be joining us at future meetings as a full board member as soon as she's able to be sworn in. Very good. Next item. The next agenda item is the donation to SSES in support of racial diversity. Stephanie and or Kim, sorry, Mrs. Fox Santora. Good.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Gosh, Mrs. Fayek did a beautiful job summarizing what I had put together here to talk with you. You know, it isn't that often that you get such a generous donation, and the spirit behind this donation really moved me. Mrs. Fayek didn't share a little bit about her background, but her background as a high school teacher, both in her everyday teaching, but in the committee that she works on, she's really an inspired thinker. And it was she who picked up on early vibes, who reached out to me to ask, would I have interest? And of course we said yes. And then she went away for just a couple of weeks, and she was able to secure other families who have the same shared hope that conversations around diversity and equity and racism are conversations that are discussed throughout the year. And to be so considerate that our teachers will need resources to help educate themselves in what to say, how to say in a way that's developmentally appropriate for their respective age groups was really, I think, very forward thinking. So, and there are so many different ways that it could be supported in our curriculum. It is something that I really hope the board would give serious consideration to. But on behalf of the school system at Samuel Staples, I would like to extend a special thank you for this offer, Mrs. Fayak, Mr. and Mrs. Khan, the Mejia family, the Plastina, the Weibels, and certainly the Cheetah family.
Thank you. So I will, I'll offer a motion. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the donation of funds to Samuel Staples Elementary School in the amount of $2,250 for the purposes of supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Do I have a motion? Gretchen, do I have a second? Looks like
Second.
Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, and discussion.
I just want to thank Lara and Devin and the other families for making these efforts. My husband and I kind of jumped in at the last minute because we wanted to help support it. But Lara, the Fayak family are just a really, really special family, always with everyone else's hearts and minds. I know Devin is passionate about diversity and inclusion work, and we're just really happy. I hope that the board will accept this donation with open arms. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you, Jenny. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, put it to a test. I'll go through the list. Jeff?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Thank you. Jenny?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes. That is 5-0 in favor. Thank you very much, Lara. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. We are moving through the agenda. At this rate, I might be eating before 9 o'clock. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Reopening SSES and HKMS. I knew it was somewhere on there. All right. So for this item, I believe we will have full participation from many of our administrators, I think from our schools, as well as Stephanie, I'm sure will be an active participant. All the administrators should have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. So Stephanie, would you like to tee it up? No? Oh, I'm so sorry. I just fixed that. That was my mistake. Apologies. Thank you.
So I will just say as a way of introduction that last week you all had an opportunity to hear the overview of reopening in all 5 buildings. And at this point, we are transitioning to the more specific building-based plans. All of these building-based plans are fully aligned with the overview that was shared last week, but this will give all of you, community members, parents, board members, a bit more of a visual of what it will be to exist in our Easton schools come fall. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the capable hands of our school leaders.
Okay, I have the pleasure of starting this off. Annie's going to put up the presentation. I recognize that reopening our 2 schools is, there are many questions in everyone's minds from every constituent group that's represented here. And I want you to know that what you're about to see is all the information and all the planning to date. In fact, as of about 5:30 this afternoon, that we can provide the community at this point in time. So let's move on. I'm going to put up now, Annie's going to put up the visual that Stephanie has shown in her presentation. And along that outer circle, again, represents 22 separate categories that both buildings are working on coming up with lots of detail and action for all of these to make sure that we can reopen our schools in a safe way for every constituent once again. As a short review, these are the 3 models. We are hoping to open all in, obviously, as soon as school can, on our date of August 31st for all students. In the plans that we're going to present that you're going to hear about and the level of detail, the administration in both schools have been working on figuring out how to best make our plans as fluid as possible, recognizing that the infection rate in Connecticut could change. It's wonderful right now. We're in a very enviable position in the whole country, but recognizing that that could change, you'll see that our plans are addressing the fluidity of the possibilities that will be ahead of us. So as a quick reminder to everybody who's watching, the Board of Ed last meeting made a change using the governor's direction and moved the first student date to August 31st. 4 days prior to that, all staff will be in. We will be doing training on health and safety protocols, social emotional learning support and planning, orientation to the building for the staff because a lot of it will look different, review of our change in practices, curriculum work, and professional learning, all in those first 4 days before the students arrive. The board also approved in the month of September and October that every other Wednesday in the afternoon, students would be dismissed early and we would continue our professional development in working on revising and improving our distance learning, what we'll call version 2, I suppose. And that would be in place regardless of whichever plan we're in, all in, hybrid, or all distance learning. At this point, I'd like to turn the mic over to Michael Brownstein, who will represent the details of Samuel Staples Elementary School at this time.
Good evening, everyone. So I did represent Samuel Staples on the ER9 District Reopening Committee. So I'll be sharing the school plan and its status as it stands right now. I would like to reiterate what Sue said, that this is a work in progress. We are continuing to receive guidance, even this afternoon, from the state about reopening plans. And we also do plan to solicit feedback from different groups in the school as we move forward, refining the plan. So I do want to start by talking about health and safety. That is our priority that we share with the people who have already spoken tonight, and I'm sure the whole community, that we can do all that we can to ensure everyone's health and safety. I'm not going to read the slide. It's there for you, but I will highlight a couple of the key points. I would also add that there will be a written document from each building that can share more detail as a supplement to the district reopening plan, and that should be becoming available to you in the next couple of weeks. So this is an overview. You see a picture in the top right of our self-contained isolation room that is within the nurses' room in case a student becomes symptomatic with COVID-19 symptoms. Students and staff will be bringing their own masks to school, but it is expected that all people in the school will be wearing masks with some exceptions, such as snack time, lunch and recess. We have purchased both desk barriers that you can see in the bottom right picture. We also have ordered face shields for every student and staff member. And those can be used to allow for us to take mask breaks when indoors. for short periods of time. We do have the ability to have routines for frequent hand washing. All of our classrooms have sinks. We do have hand sanitizers throughout the school in all of the classrooms, and we will be installing more at each of the entrances. We do have plans to limit material sharing for instructional materials. We have ordered individual sets of learning materials, but in the case when we aren't able to avoid sharing common materials, it will be part of the routine that students will be, again, frequently washing their hands with soap and water or sanitizing. I will be talking a little bit more about the ways that we will accomplish social distancing to the maximum extent possible throughout the school. So, Annie, if you could move to the next slide. So one of the key features of the state guidelines is to group the students into small groups or teams of students and educators that have consistent members and that stay together throughout the day, and we call that a cohort. And each of the students at Samuel Staple will essentially be members of 3 cohorts. Most of the day will be spent in the smallest cohort, which is their homeroom classroom, and our homeroom class sizes range anywhere right now from 15 to 21 students. The grade levels will be broken into 2 cohorts for the purposes of cafeteria and recess. And then if your child is riding the bus, they would be on a bus cohort, and the size of that cohort would depend on the size of the ridership. We also will be restricting, according to the state and the district plan, visitation to the school, limiting to essential business. We will have the availability of school childcare through Parks and Rec before and after school program. But other than that, the school will be largely restricted. Athletic groups are welcome to meet as long as they are able to meet outside of the school building. You can move to the next one. So our facilities are really in good shape to be ready for reopening. We've been able to enhance cleaning routines by adding an additional part-time custodian. That person will be responsible and help the other daytime custodian to do frequent cleaning throughout the day, and we will keep a cleaning log to make sure that that is taking place. The ventilation system has been checked by our vendor, Honeywell, and is functioning properly, but you should know that in a case that any isolated classroom's HVAC system might have a problem, we do have extra classrooms that we could relocate that class until we're able to fix it. In the common areas, you can expect to see lots of signage, both for social distancing and also to indicate travel flow throughout the hallways. The student bathrooms will be limited to two people. We'll be turning off hand dryers and installing paper towel dispensers, as well as the bathrooms are already equipped with touchless faucets. Next slide. So here's a view of a classroom, and you'll notice that the desks are spaced between 5 and 6 apart, all facing in the same direction. And the schematic on the left shows a setup for a classroom set up for 22 students. We don't have any classes currently that have 22 students. So we did this to make sure that we would be able to accommodate as many students as possible with the classroom set up in this way, with the desks separated between 5 and 6 feet. So as the class sizes are smaller, we're able to remove desks and increase the social distancing within the classroom space as well. You will notice that the classroom, of course, does look different than what we are used to. But I would urge you to consider that the most important factor that makes the classroom more warm and inviting is the teacher's ability to establish relationships, build community, and to inspire excitement for learning. And we're so fortunate to have a teaching staff. And I loved hearing John Macaluso's statement before, and which spoke to the commitment and devotion of our teachers to our students and their families. And you know, that is the factor in the classroom that makes school engaging and a happy and safe and interesting and exciting place to be. Next slide. For transportation on the buses, you've heard several times, I think last week during Dr. Pearson-Ugel's presentation, that we are encouraging parents to drive. That does reduce one cohort that your children would be involved in if you're able to drive them. But we also recognize that not all parents are able to drive. And we do have many features to try to ensure health and safety while the students are on the bus, including that all the students plus the driver will be wearing masks. Students will be assigned to sit in seats in the order that they board the bus in the morning. And we do have protocols and procedures for students to enter the school in a very orderly and socially distanced manner through each of the rear neighborhood doors. I also want to reassure kindergarten parents, because kindergartners don't know these routines, that as we always have, we will continue to have staff welcoming the kindergartners and supervising them separate from the older students, both taking them off the bus in the morning first and loading them onto the bus in the afternoon first, just to ensure that their safety as they learn all of our routines. Again, we do encourage parents to drive, and we do have some new procedures for both drop off in the morning as well as pick up in the afternoon. In the morning, we are going to use the entire sidewalk in the front of the school. We will have staff in front welcoming and directing the traffic for drivers to proceed to specific drop-off spots. Students, once they get out of the car, will enter different entrances based on their grade levels. And once they're in the school, in these 3 different locations, based on their grade levels, students will be supervised to stay socially distanced until they can go to their classrooms. We would also say that for students who do arrive late, that we would ask that only the students enter through the silo to be signed in and head to their classroom. In the afternoon, our car line pickup will really resemble what it always has. Cars lining up in the front of the school. Staff will collect a card from each car with their name in the order that they arrive. And really the only difference will be, again, we will be socially distancing the children in 3 separate areas, but in the afternoon, they'll be assigned to 3 different areas alphabetically so that members of the same family will be in the same pickup location. If you do have to pick your child up early from school, we would ask you to come to the silo entrance and wait until your child is called down and meets you there. And a big change for some of you for this year, we will not be having lobby pickup. Oh, I would add to all of those dismissal items that we are still using School Dismissal Manager, and it is very important that parents use it daily and accurately to avoid any confusion in your child's dismissal plan. It really helps things go much more smoothly. So food services will look different this year. In order to ensure socially distance by 6 feet apart in the cafeteria while the children are eating, we are again separating each grade level into 2 cohorts. 3 classes will eat in the cafeteria, 2 classes will eat in the small gym. In both locations will be supervised by 2 staff members. Children will have assigned seats at their class table, And you will be receiving more information from Chartwells about some of the options and other details. But you should know that the options will be, at least at the very beginning of the school year, very limited. And they are going to be using a touchless point of sale, so no cash. You'll have to arrange to put money into your child's account through MyBucks or by sending a check to the school. The only grade level that will not be eating in the cafeterias, and this is really a timing issue to allow us to eat, to have enough time between lunch waves to clean the tables and chairs. Kindergarten will be eating in their classrooms, supervised by their kindergarten teaching assistant. And if they are purchasing school lunches, those will be bagged and brought down to the classroom to them. So I'm going to talk about scheduling, and this is a visual which shows the jigsaw that is our schedule at elementary school. However, I would say it resembles really in almost every way the way the schedule looks every year. With a few exceptions. And I would say that our priorities were the same in creating this schedule. We're trying to create extended instructional blocks of time and also to provide as much common time for teacher collaboration. Before I move on and explain each of the components, just to give you a sense of the different cohorts. So each grade level is separated into 2 cohorts. The example here is kindergarten, and you can see kindergarten cohort A is highlighted in blue, kindergarten cohort B is in yellow. And then you can see the instructional times for each of those. You'll also notice that they do eat lunch at the same time. They do have specials at the same time. The only difference between the 2 cohorts is that they have recess at different times. And I'll be explaining that a little bit more in future slides. You can move on. So this is the scheduling for everyone coming back to school, the all-in option. So again, we have large uninterrupted extended instructional blocks. The teachers will construct their own daily schedules within those instructional blocks. And you should know that teachers are very cognizant of students' needs to move, and it is typical that teachers are scheduling regular opportunities for movement breaks. This year we'll also add to that regular opportunities for mask breaks, again, if indoors, wearing face shields. But we would also encourage teachers to plan lessons and also opportunities for breaks outside when the weather permits. There is a common time first thing in the morning for all grade levels and all classes for community building and social emotional learning. We do recognize that the learning is all about relationships, and we need to devote time now particularly more than ever to that community building and making sure that we're checking in frequently with the children and providing instruction for social and emotional learning. Again, the lunch recess I've already talked about a little bit. Lunchtime will be 30 minutes long with 10 minutes between lunch waves for cleaning. Recess will continue as it has in the past to be 25 minutes long, again with 10 minutes between the recess waves for cleaning outside. Kindergarten classes, again, will meet in the classroom. For recess, they are divided into 2 different cohorts, and which will be supervised by their kindergarten teaching assistant. Specials will look a little bit different this year. Our specials this year are art, library, media, music, PE, and Spanish for all grade levels. And one of the key differences is that all of the specials teachers, with the exception of PE, will provide the instruction in the homeroom classroom. So they'll be going from class to class. And PE, weather permitting, can have class outside, or depending on the activity, might have class in the gymnasium. If we do have to move to the hybrid model, Our daily schedule does not change, with the exception of specials. So just a reminder that the hybrid model has all students coming in. I'm sorry, not all students. Half of the student population coming in, people with the last names beginning with A through K on Monday and Tuesday, L through Z on Thursday and Friday, and then all students would be home on Wednesdays. When the students are not in school, they would be participating in distance learning. But again, the schedule looks for the in-school portion of that identical to the all-in schedule, with the exception of the special schedule, which I can show you on the next slide. So in order to have 5 different specials classes within 2 days for each half of the class, we're going to have a 5-week rotating schedule. Over the course of that 5 weeks, each class will have art, music, and library media 2 times, and PE 4 times over that rotating schedule. So that's a lot of the nuts and bolts about the reopening plan for Samuel Staples. And now Sue is going to be talking about similar nuts and bolts for Helen Keller.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to follow pretty much the same subjects and topic in order that Michael just did, although relevant specifically to Helen Keller Middle School. So first, I'd like to address health and safety. Similar to what Michael just described, access to the building will be restricted to essential business. Students in our building from 7:55 to 2:50. The third bullet is a significant change from what Staple described, in that we will have to consider every grade level of student to be one cohort. That is necessary for us to schedule students for different world language and also for math instruction. We request that students will bring refillable water bottles, because all the water spigots that you can put your mouth down to drink from will be turned off according to the requirements. We have found and set up an isolation room for children who exhibit symptoms that the nurse determines needs to be picked up within 30 minutes. And also we have a single-use bathroom for that student or any student in that room awaiting for parents to pick them up. Doors will open for student entry at 7:55, and this is a big change for us. It was the case in the past that parents who needed to get off to work early, to leave the house early, would bring students into or drop them off, and they were able to stay in the lobby. But we are not able to do that because it would violate social distancing and rules that we have. And so the doors will first open at 7:55 for all students in our building. Student bathrooms will be designated by grade level cohorts, and we too, 2 student maximum would be in any bathroom at any given time. I wanted to show you a picture of the isolation room that we've set up and had available. This room is very much directly across from our nurse's office. So it'd be able to be monitored very easily by staff. And we've made room for the eventuality of maybe having more than one student who needs to hang out there until a parent's able to come by and pick them up. In our facility, for those of you familiar with our building, there's an area of 6th grade classrooms, and there's a boys and a girls bathroom there. That's where all 6th grade students, that's the bathrooms that we've designated for them to use, just that cohort. Similarly, the 7th grade wing, it's a little bit different. It's a single-use bathroom that will be designated for 7th grade students up there. Our 8th graders will be asked to stay in the 8th grade classroom cluster using those bathrooms. If a student is in a music class or down in the gymnasium, the bathrooms by the locker rooms will be accessible for them. Students, when they're in their lunch waves, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. will be using the bathrooms in the main hallway opposite the media center. And those would get an additional cleaning and sanitizing after each lunch wave, so that another cohort that comes to lunch will not be going into the same bathroom that the previous cohort came through. Very different than in the past. We will not be issuing lockers this year for students. So all the incoming 6th grade students at our orientation, we told you to learn how to use a combination lock. You could take that off your checklist because we won't be using those. Obviously, if we had all the students congregate by lockers, we would not be able to keep them 6 feet apart, so that will not happen. Students will carry probably minimal supplies every day back and forth to school in a backpack, which they'll be able to carry as the students will be moving from class to class. And I'll describe that a little bit in more detail later when we go over the specific new schedules that we created for Helen Keller in terms of their academics and fine and practical arts classes. Hallways will be marked and indicated for traffic flow, meaning, and we also have created a schedule that will have staggering passing times to minimize the density of the hallway. So we will only have one grade moving at a time throughout the hallways or to the cafeteria or down to music or gymnasium. The locker rooms, this will be closed. They are already locked. And change for this year is that children will not be changing for phys ed classes. So no one's going into the locker room. You don't need to bring an extra change of clothes this year. Doors will be propped open at the beginning and the end of every class to try to provide touchless entry and exit on that high touch surface of doorknobs. So we will provide those. This is an example of a bathroom. This is actually in the 8th grade hallway where we can prop a bathroom door open and not violate the privacy of anyone in there. We will do so. And for bathrooms where we cannot prop doors open, we'll have paper towel dispensers outside the bathroom and hand sanitizers as well, so that people can grab a piece of paper towel to open the door. But most of the doors will be propped open in this manner. So here are our configurations for our classrooms by grade level. Those of you who know the history of Helen Keller Middle School know that we went through 2 major renovations since the original building was built in 1964. So our 6th grade classes, 7th and 8th, have different square footage in each of the classes. This is what the classrooms look like with 24 chairs set up in each one of them. We are able to maintain 4 to 5 feet from seat to seat, from child to child. So that is within the guidelines of 3 to 6, but we wanted to show you what those rooms will look like. Again, we work so hard, just like Michael said earlier, to create a school environment, and I guess John mentioned it earlier, John Macaluso before, of a collaborative culture in school, and it pains everybody involved to see rows of desks and know that the teacher's going to be standing up at the front of the room again. We're sorry that we have to go that way. So here's a drawing showing that from seat to seat, from student to student, it's 4 feet, but it's really 4 to 5 because the 8th grade classrooms are rather large, which is good because they're our biggest students in the building. There's about 7 feet, 6 or 7 feet between the smartboard and the first student desk, which gives the teacher a little bit of room there. And according to the guidelines, if they had to, could take off their mask to do an instruction that's necessary for the kids to see their face. And that's with 24 desks in it. Thank you, Annie. The next, we have 2 situations where we have rooms with alternative kind of setup. One are each of the 3 science classrooms. These are tables. We could just have 2 students at each table if it meets the requirements to keep them apart. But because I'm not comfortable having them facing each other somewhat in this room and in Project Lead the Way, where there's computers closer together, we've purchased, or we have put on order, dividers to separate the table space. This is not the exact divider that I've put on order for both the science room and the Project Lead the Way room, but just to give you a sense that we're going to make sure that kids have some extra barriers between them. Our arrival process will be different as well. Upon arrival for buses, for example, I'll show you a picture in a little bit, not just yet. But as students exit the buses one at a time, one bus will discharge at a time. Students in 6th grade will go to one door to enter, students in 7th grade a separate, and student in 8th grade yet a third door in the front. A student who's tardy, who comes after our arrival time, should go to the main door by themselves, come on in, and we'll welcome you into the building. Parent drop-off, as we're not sure how many people to expect to drive, and those that will be seen when the first day happens, how long that line will be. But we will have to have students discharge from a car one at a time, and we'll have staff members down there directing that. So it's going to require some patience from the parents driving their students to school, but we ask that students remain in the car until a staff member asks them to come on out and invite them into the building. So the top left picture is the main entrance of our school, and that's where we will bring all 8th grade students coming off of buses into the main entrance of the school building. Their hallway is closest to that exit. On the bottom left is also in that front circle where the buses drop off and pick up students at the end of the day. All 6th graders will enter the building there where 4 out of 5 of their academic classes are, so they'll be very close to get right into their classrooms. And then the bottom right picture is actually in between the main entrance and the 6th grade entrance I just described. And that's into a breezeway. And that's where we're going to ask our 7th grade students to enter the building coming off the bus. The top left picture is a picture, what many people think is our front door, but it's actually not. That's the parent drop off and pickup location. It's actually a loop. And it's the first right you can make once you come up our driveway. And that's where we'll be having children come out of their cars one at a time, one car at a time, until we can get everyone into the building. Dismissal, similarly, I know we used to like to give middle school students all this little more freedom, but COVID is not the time to do that during this pandemic. So sad to say, but we're going to have to go use a similar practice to Samuel Staples Elementary School in collecting names from from parents and guardians waiting to pick up children, and have them stationed in areas where they can stay socially distanced. And they would be called out to the outside so that they can enter their parents' or guardians' cars and drive off. It will be a slower process, but as time goes on, I'm confident we'll get the routine down to a little more efficiency. Buses will be called one at a time as they arrive. Unlike Samuel Staples, we don't have those neat lanes where all the buses can pull into. So the buses pull up, our office will be monitoring that, and we'll be calling students down when the buses arrive to the front. Similar to the ER9 reopening plan, as well as what Michael just described, when students enter the bus, they have to go to the back. There'll be assigned seats for every student, but when you enter the bus, you load it and sit towards the back and fill up the bus to the front. Students who need to be picked up early for whatever reason, by parents. Parents need to drive up to our main door, call the main office of the school, and we'll get your child and escort your child out to your car. We request or inform you that 15 minutes before dismissal time is not a time that we can accommodate early pickups. That is our front loop where the buses will be congregating, and it's just not possible to do it all at the same time. Again, dismissal will be staggered, and students will be called to leave to be dismissed out of the building in a staggered way as well. So in order to accommodate in our cafeteria, we're going to put all of our round tables in the closet. We do have enough between computer tables and what we had in the cafeteria to just have long tables available. The capacity of students in our cafeteria is maxed out at 64. So as a result of that, we will have 2 separate lunch waves per grade. In a little while, we'll show you the schedule of the day and you'll see how we're going to manage that. And students will have assigned seats. There'll be two children per table, which gives them 6 feet apart so that once they get their food and begin to eat, they can take their masks off and be 6 feet apart from each other and be safe in doing that. Similar to Samuel Staples, lunch options will be limited. They'll be prepackaged and it's kind of a grab and go, also touchless. And then at Helen Keller, we take our 30-minute lunch period and have the last 15 minutes where kids can go outside. And that will be an opportunity for them to have a break outside. They don't need to wear their mask. And that's a good fresh air time that we all love. So in establishing, looking over all the state guidelines for how we can keep everybody safe, we had some scheduling priorities, and this is the basis for the schedules that you're going to see in a minute. We need to minimize the number of daily transitions from class to class, and you'll see that we've accomplished that. We need to create a schedule that allows students and teachers longer periods of time together and also to support safety protocols. We're reducing the number of students using each room daily by minimizing the number of transitions that they'll have, and you'll see how we accomplish that. I already talked about staggered passing times. And the schedule that we will show you in a moment also supports the ease of transition from all-in, hybrid, or to distance learning. We also believe that the schedule we're going to present to you now also takes almost priority, I'll say, to making sure that everyone feels good and is doing okay. And we will have advisory activities in the morning to support our SEL objectives of making sure that kids can make a good transition back into school and feel comfortable learning in the environment that we've created. At this point in time, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Annie, who's going to take us through the schedules, which is very new, very different. So please give her your attention. Thank you.
All right. All right, take a deep breath. I know your heads are probably exploding, and I'm not going to make them any lighter the next few minutes, because what we've done is try to literally recreate life at Keller. And like Sue just went over, we wanted to do it in a way that valued and respected the feedback we got in the spring, but also incorporated perhaps a golden opportunity to set up a school day that we felt kind of honored a little bit more about what we know about adolescence and gave us a chance to break away from that old industrial model. So if there's a silver lining to this revolution, it's that perhaps we are creating change that might last forever in a really good way. So what you see in front of you is just a quick graphic on if we're all there. So if every student is in the building, it will look like this, and we've created a 2-day block schedule. Over the course of 2 days, a blue day and a yellow day, students will see all of their classes. But we very purposely split it to 2 days because the rushed pace of 8 periods a day, A, is not necessarily good for a 12-year-old's brain. And B, we heard loud and clear that in distance learning, it was overwhelming to manage without lots of overlaps. So as Sue just referenced, we want this to really be fluid no matter what style of schooling we're doing. So the recreation of our schedule has a lot of feedback in mind to hopefully value what people told us. Now, it might have a lot of detail and a lot of educational jargony stuff, so feel free to stop me or jot down questions because I will re-explain anything that seems a little complicated, okay? So here's for all in. The big difference is in all in versus hybrid, we're gonna still do blue and yellow days. We're still gonna slow the pace and give people more time. The only difference between the two is that when we're all there, we had to double the amount of lunch waves. And when it's hybrid and only half the students are there, we can just do a single lunch wave per grade level. So the core values and setup of both of these schedules are the same, but the double lunch waves versus single lunch waves was a driving factor in changing some logistics. And the most impacted by those logistics were the setup of our fine and practical arts classes on an all-in version versus a hybrid version. So let me give you a quick snapshot, and then I'll kind of walk you through some of our vision here and see what you think. Knowing that we're going to have a staggered arrival and a staggered dismissal, we wanted to be very mindful to create buffers at the beginning and end of the day to allow for this gradual entry and release without chopping into different academic courses. So what we've done is set up a period at the beginning of the day called Pride. It's our acronym at Keller. It'll allow for a cushion for students to arrive in a calm but slower manner and it gets settled in their homeroom class. And then with the additional time, we want to be very mindful of having a great start to the day where students feel like just connected and supported and seen and heard. And instead of the bell ringing and they're running to their first academic, supposed to have their head in the game, we would rather them come in, get comfortable and like just kind of talk about how things are going, maybe play around with some cool scenarios, lessons that we've done in SEL, talk about some executive functioning, like how are you managing your time? Here's some cool strategies. We want it to be a really powerful start to their day, but also this golden time to fill in skill instruction and conversation that we've never had the time to really do well because it's just rush, rush, rush. Okay, this is an example of one grade level. So you'll take note that obviously things would happen in a different order for each grade level, but the general gist of what's there is the same for all three. For this grade level, they will start right after their Pride period, going to an FPA course. And we have 5 different FPA classes. And usually in the past, we've split stuff up into trimesters and rotating days, and it doesn't necessarily jive well into our new vision with the schedule. But what it does do is allow for us to give each kid this unique schedule of, I'm gonna have art every Monday, I'm gonna have PLTW every Tuesday, I'm gonna have health on Wednesdays, I'm gonna have PE on Thursdays, and I'm going to have music on Fridays. And I'll show you in a minute a graphic of what that looks like. It's also a longer period of time and it's for the entire year. So instead of having art for a trimester, I get to see my art teacher every week for the entire school year. So a different model, definitely a change, definitely something to adjust to, but hopefully still valuing all of these areas that kids thrive in and love and shine in. Each day there's 3 academic block times, about 60 to 65 minutes. There's a slight variation in order for us to have staggered passing times because we just didn't want everybody ending at the same time. You will notice that in the middle there's this big 90-minute chunk. It's because during that there are 2 different lunch waves for that grade level. So if I'm in 6th grade and I happen to be in group A, I might have class first and then I go to lunch. Maybe I'm in group B and I go to lunch first and then I have class. Still the same amount of time for class. We just went to lunch at different times. So there was less of us in the cafeteria. The end of the day, we're calling it home base. Lots of baseball scenarios here, but this is to allow us to start a staggered dismissal. It gets the kids back into the same room where they started the day. It's the same group they were in the morning, same cohort, and their stuff is there. And the teacher is going to, in a mentored role, really model a lot of executive functioning things that we heard students struggle to do independently when we were in distance learning. So creating a priority list. Let's talk about what's due and when, and what did you have going on in this class? And what do you think you should work on tonight versus tomorrow? So instead of all the things we were hoping kids could do alone and they can't all do yet, we're going to use this time at the end of the day before we leave to mentor them through that process, to think aloud as a group, hopefully knowing that this might sink in a little bit more. And then if we have to close, maybe some of those skills will transfer. They'll be a little less stressed in how they have to manage all of this independently. And as Sue referenced, we'll start dismissing students from this period in a staggered way, calling students to the car line based on our names, calling the buses as they arrive. It's not going to cut into any academic, but it allows us to like slow the pace. We can stay distance. We're not rushing. We just, you know, middle school kids love to like run place to place, like there's like a fire all the time. And we just wanted to create a schedule where everything just slowed down. We could breathe, we could make sure we were being safe, we could do extra cleaning and extra hand washing. And it was time to recognize all the brain research we've been doing that adolescents and probably all humans, they need time just to let stuff sink in and process and connect. And so on a side note, we're kind of hoping that this type of schedule is a cool silver lining to what's happening now in the world. Okay, I went over most of this already, but I very purposely did not go over SOAR. So if you check, oh geez, sorry. If you see here in the middle, there is, hold on one second. Okay, now just to point out, it's spelled S-O-A-R, so not S-O-R-E. It's not a painful period of the day. I mean, I don't know, I guess you can interpret it anyway. And just to show our creative skills, there is a Helen Keller quote in our entranceway. As soon as you come in, one can never consent to creep when one feels the impulse to soar. So, I mean, just a little connection there. If we could get a high five on that. And SOAR is a period of time. It's 60 minutes long and it's every other day. It's only on our yellow days. It's created for a lot of amazing things we wish we had always had time for. And a lot of things that we've had time for that in this crazy new world, we need to be prioritizing. So at the start of the school year, we really want to use this period for a lot of tech-based training for students. We got a lot of feedback from students and parents in the spring that a lot of the stress came from, how do I log on to this? And where do I find this? And we were trying to do it from a distance and teachers were calling on the phone and Google Meeting. And it's just so much easier if we're together in person and we talk them through, here's the setup for Google Classroom. Here's where you can see this posted. Here's where you can turn this in. So initially, we want to set kids up to be super comfortable with this whole new level of technology that now we're relying on in the world of education, hoping that we're going to use it all year, whether we're in or out. And we just want them to be less stressed about how to manage that. And hopefully also take that stress off the parents who are trying to figure it out at the same time. We also recognize that I know we've been very concerned about students coming back who are behind and really struggling because they had a hard time engaging in last spring. But to be honest, I also think we're going to have students who are far beyond perhaps where they would have been, because in a distance learning world, they really kind of took the reins and ran with it and used these tech platforms to advance beyond the curriculum they perhaps would have been just taught in the classroom. So I think the divide of the different styles, approaches will perhaps be even greater than in past years. And we would love a period of the day where students can feel like they personally are taking the next steps that's right for them. We have lots of different tech platforms and specialists that can offer, whether it's support or enrichment, but offer this time to not feel like you're treading water, that however you came to us, you will go farther. And finally, and probably very, very most importantly, all of our specialists, our SIT team, and our special education staff will use this 60 minutes for the vast majority of services that happen throughout all of those different levels, and SRBI as well as special education. So it'll be a great 60-minute block of time that can be used for the different services that students need, both emotionally, behaviorally, and educationally. The other two periods you see on this grid, I have gone over already, but feel free to ask me questions later if I talked too quickly. And just at the top here, you see this little example of what I was talking about with the FPA classes. If everyone has a different one each day of the week. I'll go over the bottom one in a moment. So if you will be patient with me, I will go back and forth. Okay, hybrid. Just like Michael said, half of the school is there Monday, Tuesday. Then we shut it down and we clean it all out. And the other half comes Thursday, Friday. And we're still gonna do our blue and yellow schedule. It still has the same vibe. It still has all the thoughts behind it and the setup of it. The only difference is that we only need to have one lunch wave per grade because there's only half of them there, right? So that shifted. The only thing it really shifted was the way we could run FPAs. Because if you see here, the FPAs originally had one each day of the week. But in this model, there's Wednesdays missing, right? So we can't run the 5-day idea if we only have 4 in-person days, okay? So here's our example of a blue day and a yellow day if we were hybrid. All the same stuff is in there, but you'll notice that the kids have an FPA block of time where they get to see 2, a 30-minute and a 30-minute. And I'll show you an example in a moment, but if I was a kid, I might have, let me show you, on yellow day, I might go to music and then go to art, 30 minutes each. And on a blue day, I might go to a PE health combination, and then I might have PLTW. So again, it's a totally different setup, really driven by the fact that there are no longer 5 days in the hybrid model, there are 4. Okay. Oh, look at that. All of this talk, and we reached the thank you slide. Probably your favorite one. But at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Stinson, and thank you for your attention. We really appreciate all your patience.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who presented for the detail. I personally have a long list of questions that I have check marks next to. So thank you. That's very reassuring, certainly as a board member, but also as a parent. I want to open it up to discussion. I do want to mention one other thing that we wanted to touch on here, and that is the hiring of the technology specialist, or sort of restoration and technology specialist role for SSES. Tom, did you have anything you wanted to just mention about that briefly?
Yes, thank you, John. And thanks to Mike and Kim and Annie and Susan for that presentation. When we were putting the budget together, do you remember the halcyon days before the 13th of March? I recommended and the board accepted that we reduce the support staff and technology to the network administrator and just one tech support position that we were going to shuttle between the 2 buildings. I think we're living in a new reality now where we're going to need more technology support. And so I'd like to propose that that the board consider returning the elementary technology para position back into the budget. It's about $36,000 in round numbers. You can afford it because if you'll recall back in June when you were finalizing the budget, you paid forward some of your special ed costs and some other costs. And it just seems very commonsensical to me that we give the teachers the support that they need in both buildings in the eventuality. We know they're going to use more tech and got to be able to more smoothly move to hybrid or distance learning. So I think it would be a good idea to entertain that at this point.
And so Tom and any other board member who has a better recollection, feel free to jump in, or Scott or anyone else. I thought we had approved that as a part of the approval of the original plan. When the plan that we were submitting to the state, I think we were back and forth, and then I think we landed on actually approving that already. So I think we've voted on that, but if there's any confusion about that, we should address that now.
It was a component of the financials in the
Right.
estimates that I shared in the joint boards meeting a week or so ago. Yeah.
Are the other board members of the same mind that we've said yes to this already?
Yes, we covered that.
Oh, in that case, I apologize.
Okay.
So many factors we're trying to keep track of.
Of course.
To make sure that we have in fact.
Well, and better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah,
If there's any confusion or controversy about it, then we can vote again now. Is everybody good? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So John, if I could also, I know that well, there's two things. One is I know that every answer that the administrators provide will generate 2 more questions, and just remind the community that we have today sent out another whack at the parent feedback survey. We're just trying to gather data. Parents are not making any kind of commitment that they can't change their minds on. And then we also have shared a link today in the community listserv to an FAQ, so folks can get their questions in there. Just for organizational reasons, rather than have the administration respond 50 times to questions about the lunchroom, we encourage people to get their questions. We'll collate them and keep generating out responses to the community at large. I wonder if you'd like to hear from Jen Del Conte about special ed at this point, which is clearly related to this.
And yes, please, for sure. And then also, would Jen be able to speak about pre-K, or is there someone who can also talk about pre-K at SSES?
Between Jen and Stephanie, I'm sure, and Kim, we can answer any questions.
I'm sure many parents have questions there as well.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. I have to see if I can try to share my presentation. So
certainly.
Okay, so can everyone see the presentation here? I'm just
not yet. It doesn't appear to be sharing yet.
Okay, hold on a minute.
You know what? You probably have the prompt where it's saying which screen do you want to share?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to get back into screen. Apparently my my screen minimized. My Zoom screen minimized. So I'm trying to get back into the Zoom meeting first.
No worries.
Screen. That's okay.
So John, while we're waiting for that to come up, just want to thank both Lynn Loesch and John Macaluso for their comments earlier, and encourage any of our associations or unions to reach out to Stephanie Pearson-Ugal directly. It's absolutely not we're trying to leave people out. It's the rough logic of one small central office in 3 districts. So I do respectfully ask all of us to remember that there are actually 12 unions that central office interacts with on a regular basis. So we do want to hear from folks. We want their input, we want their ideas, and we want to collaborate. So don't feel you have to wait for Stephanie to invite a conversation. Go ahead and ask her to set up a conversation. Jen, your document is up at this point.
Okay, so first, I would like to just say that a lot of the special education will tie into what the principal already spoke to. So we move forward here. So this again is a graphic that everyone is familiar with, and I just want to assure everybody that what we've been working on in special services will align with the district plan and with the individual school building plans. So really, this slide is really just a reminder is that special education students are an integral part of the fabric of every school. They are general education students first, so all of the opportunities that are afforded to every student in the building is also afforded to special education students. We know that they have some additional procedural safeguards, and I hope to touch upon some of them today. So again, this is a model we're all familiar with. What will a special ed program look like if we're all in? There will be some considerations for special ed student in a hybrid model and all out. So what I have done is I've highlighted really the key parts to each of these sections.
Excuse me, Jen, I'm sorry, can you go up and present so that the image is larger for folks to see?
Yeah, it'll be easier on the playback. If you click present in the upper right-hand corner, right next to share.
Sure. Let me see. View.
You can go to file and present too.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
There you go.
Many ways to get there.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So really what I've done here is I have put in red really some of the key language that pertain to special education in each of these sections. When we are all in and every special ed student is in the building, the IEP will be, the expectation is it will be implemented fully. So if a child gets speech and language 3 days a week, the expectation is that they will receive their services 3 days a week. It is just as if they were pre-COVID, they would be getting all of their services. The only difference is in order to minimize the travel between buildings, we may do some services remotely or virtually within the building. For example, if a student needs, say, structured reading approach, but they're in a resource room, or if a student is in a more intensive class, the teacher could remotely work with that student within the building. Again, this is one of the considerations we have, so keep the students within their cohorts. For a hybrid model, there will be some student that we would consider having come in every day, just because of the nature of their disabilities. So there may be students that we consider high needs. The state is supposed to give us some guidance on determining who is high needs. But for our point of view, it's really those students that spend 20% of their day with non-disabled peers, which means they have to be in a self-contained classroom for the majority of the day, or they may have some significant sensory impairment, or they need direct physical assistance, or they need one-to-one teaching. We may ask them to come in every single day, regardless of where they are in the alphabet. On the days that they are not with their cohort, they actually may be in a more restrictive environment. So they may spend all day, or at least a greater portion of their day, in the self-contained setting. IEP services will be provided to the maximum extent possible. Again, the language that comes directly from the state. So they may not get all of their services, but the district will make every effort to maximize as much of the services that they can. So if we are all out, each special education student is assigned a case manager. So the case manager will be the point person that will be the liaison between the student and the rest of their program. So for example, if a student gets speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and they have a general education teacher, their case manager would help coordinate all of those efforts to make sure that the students have a robust program. So again, instruction will be both synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. And again, the language we will use is the IEP will be implemented to the greatest extent possible. We always strive to implement the IEP in its entirety, but in an all-out model or hybrid model, that simply may not be the case. And all of this will be done in communication with the families. So I think this is really important to highlight the distinction. When we say, I'm keeping my child home, so I think homeschooling has always been an option for families, and it continues to be an option. So if you wish to homeschool your child, that means you are formally withdrawing your child from the school district, and you will be responsible for educating them. The state has always had that option on the table. This is not new. Homebound is usually for students that are out for a medical reason. So if they have been hospitalized, or if they're immunocompromised, and they have a doctor's note, Usually the doctor will provide documentation to the district with a date of return. Again, this is not a new option, but it is there and has not changed. The new option is the concept of temporary learning from home. And the IEP was never designed for a virtual environment. The IEP was always designed for a brick and mortar world. And this is something that every director is struggling with at this time. We don't know what it will look like. And I'm being frank when I say that. The intent is we will provide IEP services, again, to the greatest extent possible. And this is where we have to have heart-to-heart conversations with the child's entire team, with the parents and the families to see what that will look like. But again, the IEP, the operative word individualized. So again, it's going to have to be an individual conversation between the needs of the student and making sure that we fulfill our mandates with the IEP. So again, a lot of this came from Dr. Pearson Hugo's presentation, but again, I put in red where where special services will be, where there will be some changes. A lot of our students rely on visual access, whether you have a diagnosis of autism or if you're doing a Wilson-based program. The face gives you a lot of cues. So we will be purchasing some clear face masks for staff to use with students during sessions. We will also be providing some modeling for students if they have difficulty in keeping their mask on. We will be working with families to give them strategies to help their student tolerate a mask using visual video training, social cues, and stories. So a lot of our staff will be working directly with students and families on helping students become acclimated to some of the protective equipment they have to use. For staff who are working with our high needs students, they will be using gloves. In some cases, they'll be using face shields, but they may have an additional barrier. We are having conversations with staff about using scrubs, just because the clothing is a little bit easier to use. So there is going to be some discussion about using scrubs with some of these populations. Use of physical barriers, it will be particularly important when we do some of our individualized testing for students. But we will have a clear barrier, and I do have pictures at the end. But the clear barriers will be used when we do a lot of individual work. Or in preschool setting, we will have some barriers to divide the tables into quarters to allow the students to at least sit together and work on some of their social interaction. Again, hand washing and sanitizing and social distancing that the building principal spoke to will also apply to students with special needs. One of the provisions that we have in special education is the idea of restraints and seclusion for students that, in order to protect them from themselves, if they should need some additional support, the staff would be trained to provide what I call comforting to those students. And we will also make sure that they also have the appropriate PPEs, which is face shields, gowns, gloves, and shields. They will be provided to the staff. Transportation, some of our special needs students, as you know, transporting them to and from school is a challenge. So again, we will be using videos, modeling, and visual cueing. They may be the first ones off the bus just because of their inability to sit in a seat very long. So we will be working very closely with the building principals, assistant principals, and the bus companies to make sure that these students are safe in the getting to and from school. So in terms of cohorting, I know that the buildings talked about cohorting and keeping students in cohorts. Cohorting may look a little bit different in special ed because we have to fulfill IEP mandate goals, and we try to group students based on the IEP goals and objectives. So it is possible that we will be pulling students from different cohorts to create a special education cohort. Again, that's why we spoke about that, the option of video within the brick and mortar environment. So we just want to make it very clear that we also have to protect the safety of our staff and students. So we may have to mix the cohort within the special education environment. But again, this is going to take finesse, and working with the building principals to make sure that we can minimize the movement of cohorts. So in terms of reentry, we have to look at our data to see where our students are in terms of their IEP goals and objectives. We recognize that we could not conduct all of the assessments that were required between March and June because we were in a distant learning environment. So we will be doing catching up on some of our assessment. The state has told us that we have until October 1st to catch up on our backlog. So in fact, we are catching up now as we speak. We've reached out to some families and they have been willing to bring their children in for testing because they don't want to have that extra responsibility on their child when they come back into the school environment. So we've started asking families to bring their children in for testing so we could make sure that we have all of the data we need to submit to the state on October 1st. When we talk about programming decision, we base them based on the nature of the student disability, not necessarily what the IEP classification is. So again, we pay close attention to where they are in terms of their developmental levels and in terms of what kind of programming they need. So we've had to make some adjustment to our curriculum. This really pertains to the students in our BASIS program. So we will be, for those that we do in cooking activities, they will be put on hold. And then we will reevaluate if we can go back to those types of activities. Personal hygiene, because that requires a lot of hand over hand, and it requires a lot of touching between staff and students to teach them the daily living skills. So we will be minimizing a lot of those. So a lot of it will be more verbal than physical. Again, clear face masks will be used, and community-based field trips will be on hold, and they will be reevaluated depending on what those COVID numbers look like. And again, case management, every student is assigned a case manager. Consultations, this is or consultation between the school and families, consultation between staff, PPT meetings and 504 meeting, they will all be held virtually. So we have, we've already set up a system in which we have a separate email account, which is called ER9 PPTs. So then we will be scheduling PPT meetings. So everyone will be given a link. If they're invited to a PPT meeting, they'll be given a link. We can hold those meetings virtually because parent participation is essential to the development of a child's program. So we felt this was the best way to keep everyone safe. The staff will also be socially distant during PPT meeting as well. So we've been working with the building to assign different spaces for staff to go so they can also participate from their designated location. And then the temporary learning from home, we are awaiting really further guidance from the state on this. We are told that we should receive guidance from the bureau chief probably within the next couple of days. But really, this is the potential for a live streaming opportunity. It will consist of digital learning platforms, again, combined with synchronous and asynchronous activities. And then we'll also be able to use resources like the Connecticut Learning Hub and other software platforms that are also available to general education students. So the case manager will probably be working with the families to modify and adapt the activities that the students are being asked to do. Now this is preschool. Preschool, the guidelines are slightly different. So so really when we talk about face coverings, you know, there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of back and forth regarding face coverings. So face coverings for children over the age of 2, it is expected they will wear a mask. And they should be able to put the mask on or off without assistance. And again, we will be using parent consultation, video training. We will work with the families to help teach the student how to use a mask. I know other districts have offered in-person ESY for the youngest learners. And what we have heard from other towns is that the little guys have really been able to tolerate a mask for a long period of time. We've also heard from some of our families saying they were surprised that the kids are able to keep a mask on for a longer period of time. So again, our preschool staff will work very closely with the students to help them tolerate wearing a mask. Again, in terms of protective equipment and protective clothing, we will be using gloves. The use of scrubs also came up. If the staff has long hair, they should keep the hair back in a ponytail, and we will have some disposable gowns as well. So now this talks about sanitizing in the preschool setting. We will be spending a lot of time teaching the little ones how to wash their hands, you know, for 20 seconds. And it will be constantly be reinforced. When they come into the building, they're expected to wash their hands. When they go out to the playgrounds, they're expected to wash their hands. When they come back from the playground, they're also expected to wash their hands. Toys that cannot be cleaned or sanitized will not be used in the preschool environment. Machine washable cloth toys should really only be used once, and then they really should be put into a bin, which at the end of the day, they could be sanitized or cleaned. So the floor and riding toys, anything that's used on the floor, or if we have like bicycles or anything that's like a riding toy, really needs to be washed and disinfected weekly. And if there are any toys that end up in the child's mouth, again, that has to also be put into a bin to be cleaned at the end of the day. These guidelines came directly from the Office of Early Childhood. So the other thing about preschool setting is they came out with a very firm guidelines for preschool. The space is capped at 14. We can only admit 14 children per space. Right now, we are under 14. So that is the group size limit that actually a cap. And we cannot really mix the groups. So we have 2 preschool classes in Easton, and they really are to be considered 2 separate cohorts. So there really should not be any mixing of the 2 groups. You know, the 3s and the 4s, they really should be in 2 separate cohorts. We also have been asked to postpone holiday events or festivals or performances, but again, they can do things within their cohorts. It's just that this will also have to be evaluated on a regular basis to see if we could bring back some of those traditions. So they will have to have staggered time. You know, if they use the playground, we will have to stagger the playground time between the 2 cohorts. And ideally, they should be 6 feet apart during meals or snack times. And the social emotional learning, you know, this is something that will probably be at the forefront of everything that we do, you know, especially with the reopening of school and special needs students, you know, if they have lunch bunch, or if they have counseling groups, you know, we will certainly schedule them according to their IEPs. But we're very fortunate that the Easton board has agreed to increase the the mental health staff, you know, by hiring a part-time psychologist at Staples, and her focus will probably be working with the mental health team, you know, to help these students get reacclimated to a new reality when they come back to school. So here's just some examples of some of the materials and equipment that we would use. As you can see, we have face shields, the cloth mask. Here's an example of a clear mask that we would use. And then we also have disposable masks that we keep in the school if the kids should forget a mask. On the top picture up here, you cannot see, but there is a barrier. And the reason why I put this picture in there is because we really want to have that connection between the evaluator and the student. And as you can see, you really can't see that barrier. But if you go to the picture on the bottom, you see that we do have a clear, thin acrylic barrier between the two. And these are just examples of some of the tools that we would use when we evaluate. Here's an example of a 4-way divider that we may consider using in our resource room, in our speech room, and in our preschool environment as well. So we divide the table into 4, and it allows, three students and a teacher to sit around to have a conversation, so they can work on some of the activities together. And we've also put in some desk barriers as well. The desks will not be this close together, but I put them together to show the height difference between the two. So this one may be used with older students, this one may be used with the younger students. So that's really all we have for special services.
So thanks, Jen. And I just so the community knows, the presentations and PowerPoints that were made tonight, we will get up on the website so people can go through them in greater, and, take more time to get through them when they want to. We've been at this for almost an hour, and you can see we consider this the overview. So your administrators have spent so many hours trying to think of everything that they can to make your kids and the staff and the faculty safe. We are really committed to that. None of us is diminishing the importance of placing safety right at the top of our list of actions. I do want to, before you move forward, just remind us where we are in Connecticut, because we have all followed the rules really well. The infection rate in Connecticut is slightly less than 1%. And just to put that in numbers for you, and again, I am not diminishing the importance of us doing all of these things. Out of 100,000 people in Connecticut, 10 to 100 are infected. So say that the other way, 99,900 to 99,990 people, because of our vigilance, are not currently infected. You saw the governor presented today that we remain in that favorable spot. So just 2 thoughts on that before we give it back to John. First, thank you to the faculty, to the administrators for their just really, really thoughtful work. And again, we encourage parents, staff, faculty with ideas on how to make it even better, not to wait, to reach out and contact us. And we've sent a means for doing that through the listserv. But if the conditions change, that's why we have the 3 levels of the plan. The starting with everyone back in, the hybrid, and the return to distance learning. I met with 8 other superintendents and the governor this morning at New Canaan High School, and we were speaking to him in earnest about the whole K-12 experience. And the older the kid, the more responsible we can ask them to be, but also the more exposed they potentially are. So parents who are really thinking about these things, I do encourage you to reach out to Tony Wong, to Rich, to Will Haskell, to Ann Hughes, to your representatives, let you know their thinking. We administrators would like the districts to have more choice in how to go into the year. We would want you to be able to decide, do you start the full 5 days, return as we've laid out for you, or could you opt to take the hybrid model that you've also seen tonight? At the moment, the governor is saying it's got to be prepared for the full 5-day return. But I think we've got to keep contingency planning for all all eventualities. So,
Yeah,
thank you, and back to you, John.
Thank you, Tom. And just to, make sure that everybody is clear, I want to make sure that the board members get a chance to ask questions. I think we just got a ton of answers on a lot of the questions. I'm looking at the frequently asked questions sort of collection form that was sent out earlier today, and there are 87 questions that have been submitted so far, which is great. There are a lot of questions that, yep, got it, heard it again, and that's the whole point, that we can consolidate those and send them back out. And a great many of the questions on that sheet have just been answered just now. Everyone should know this is being recorded. This is also being live streamed on YouTube, and people can watch this back. So if you thought, wait, did they just say this? It's being recorded. You can see it. So with that, Jeff, Gretchen, Jenny, Randy, do you have questions that you? Yep, go ahead, Gretchen.
I do really want to thank all of the administrators that presented tonight, because the details I think were really helpful and really answered a lot of questions that I've been hearing out in the community. One thing that I didn't hear that I hope someone could speak to is a little more information for those people who are still trying to figure out if they want to check the temporary learning from home box or the back to school box. Can you guys speak a little bit more to that temporary learning from home piece, what that means?
Yeah, great question. Let's have Dr. Pearson-Ugal address that.
So I think the best thing I could say is that we are all committed to providing resources to the extent possible for those families where the parents have decided that it's really best for students, for lots of different reasons, to learn from home temporarily. So if that means that we can put together some type of bag of materials, many reading books, possibly a journal, workbooks if those are used, math tools, etc., then we will certainly do that. For older students that might be a part of a Google Classroom that's already been set up, then the students temporarily learning from home will still be included in any type of a classroom community. It wouldn't be fair of our teachers to expect them to plan double, to plan for the students who are at home and also plan for the 5 days a week of in-person instruction. So we are working with our teachers associations to gather their ideas about how we can really make this work for students. So you've heard conversations about live video. That's not specified anywhere in the full written plan. So we're looking at the best ways of providing access to the curriculum to those families at home. The state is also in the process of developing the Connecticut Learning Hub. It's not fully built out at this point. So I know that I check it pretty much daily and it's still on its way. We are told that in the next week or so, we'll see big changes, but right now it's a bit bare bones. So I hope that that helps. We will certainly be providing resources. It wouldn't necessarily mean that the student every day would have access to his or her teacher for a tutorial, but the student would still be considered part of the classroom.
Well,
So
that was something a lot of
they have
parents,
assignments.
yeah, that was something people were asking specifically. Will they be assigned a class? Or let's say in the middle school and high school, will they be assigned all their classes? Will they be getting the curriculum so they could potentially, figure out how to work through that from home, even if it's more on their own? I mean, these were things that people were asking.
Yes.
And,
So the temporary learning from home is truly temporary. So those students will still be assigned a class. They will still be assigned a schedule. And the parents might determine for a certain period of time, perhaps it's because of quarantine, perhaps it's because of another family member, that the student needs to be home for a number of weeks, and then possibly they'll re-enter the school community. It could go the other way. We need a little bit of time to switch gears, certainly, but there are no set in stone guidelines in terms of a timeline to change it back and forth. And that's, I was trying to respond to parents who sent me emails specifically on this topic to say that the decisions that you're making on the survey are not binding, and that it's always a parent's option to decide. And, you know, we tried it in session and I don't think that it's working for whatever reason. So now we're going to go to temporary learning from home. The school just has to be informed as to the decision, because during that temporary time period, we are still required to take attendance and report those days as we would as if the student were in session.
Thank you.
And just related to that, if people making decisions about using the bus or not using the bus company will need a number of days to accommodate opting out or opting back in. You know, you opt out, you just don't show up at the bus stop. But if you're opting back in, we have to get that information, inform them, get the driver. It may not be a, you know, day in, day out kind of a thing.
Gretchen, do you have additional?
Well, just to clarify a few more things people are asking. So even if a student's assigned a schedule and a class, but their work is not going to be graded per se, as if they were in school, correct?
No, it would be graded. Absolutely. Yep. The work, the plan that I think you want to contemplate as a board is we don't want to ask teachers, we don't think it's fair to teachers to ask them to prepare every day for every lesson, 2 separate lessons, one for direct instruction and one for remote. Yep. So we want to ask them to come up with something that can be presented in a dual format. It's one of the reasons that we've budgeted in the cameras. I think there was some confusion on the part of several people. We do not contemplate having the teacher at the beginning of the day turn on a camera that follows her around for 6 hours. What we contemplate is the teacher sending out a notification to her students. We're going to be doing a reading instructional lesson at 9 o'clock. We're going to be doing math at 10:15. And so the teacher would turn it on and say to the kids, you know, we've scheduled you to be here. I'm going to explain an algebraic function, or we're going to talk about history or science or something. Then the teacher is going to continue the lesson with the kids physically present, and those kids who are home would do independent work. All of that to be submitted. It would be parallel work. So we'll have to work out the logistics of that as we go. But it's the Board of Ed that says you board members have the duty to provide free appropriate public education to the kids, and to the greatest extent that we can accommodate, those taking temporary option to remain at home would still get access to the lesson and their teachers. What it's not going to be, it just simply can't, you know, folks, is an absolute parallel matrix-like experience where even though you're home, you think you're in the classroom. It just can't be. So.
No, thank you. I think that clarifies people's questions, and I think that's helpful.
One quick thing before we leave the topic. So that we envision, okay, we start at 10 o'clock. We're going to be explaining some concept in algebra. Would that be recorded for those students who cannot attend at that specific time because of some conflict with computer resources or for any other reason?
No, we don't. At the moment, we're not thinking of creating a whole library of instructional materials. We have several concerns about that also. We know the teachers do, but we also don't want to create an educational record unless there's certain very specific conditions met there. We want to say this is a live feed, and our expectation will be that students will not be making recordings, and that the teachers and the other students, it would be facing the teacher. So you would not be panning across the students, but we have to protect the privacy rights of all of the students and the teachers. So no, not a recording. in the same way that if you were in period 4 and you whipped out your cell phone and said, I want to tape the teacher right now, the teacher would say no. So, but it would be live and accessible. And just, I want the teachers to feel comfort that the administration is going to support them if clever kids, more clever than I, were to try to create a meme of a teacher, take something out of context. That's all subject to us intervening to ensure that the students and the teacher are teaching and learning.
Thank you.
Don, is it okay if I chime in on this before
Please
we
do.
switch to
No,
something
please.
else?
Thank you, Jenny.
I'm really glad Gretchen asked the question. I think this topic is the source of a tremendous amount of anxiety for a lot of parents who are trying to make this decision. I think it's helpful for them to hear that they don't have to, that you're not locked in stone, whatever choice you make one way or the other. So I think the more times that we can say that to folks and let them know, if you check that box on the survey, well, it helps us plan for you. If you change your mind, you're not locked into that for the course of the year. The other thing, I think it's important to be clear, the things that I'm hearing this is not going to be. We're not leaving parents to click on a website to access the Learning Hub and say, you know, pick the grade 2 drop-down menu, you're on your own, you're not going to hear from us. I think there's some fear that we're just going to be sort of feeding a line of resources and expecting families to figure it out on their own. So I want to make it clear that I'm not hearing that from anybody tonight, that we're not expecting parents to figure this out on their own, that there will be some contact with the teacher. But I also think we're being clear in saying that this is not going to be a fully fleshed out distance model the way it was when everybody was home in distance learning. It sounds to me like it's going to be sort of a somewhat in between, ongoing, changing, slightly flexible, you know, depend on the teacher and the grade level and what's happening. But that parents are going to have to participate in helping their child access their education if they do choose that remote option. So
That's
yes,
correct.
no, does that?
Yeah,
well said.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jenny. So for folks who are on or watching later, last Monday night, the 20 of the 21 members of the Board of Education had a board meeting that started at 6 and ended at 12:30 after midnight. And so that was a full school day, right? 6.5 hours. And if we contemplate, or if there are people who are thinking, my kid's gonna sit down at home, turn on the computer and stare at it for 6.5 hours for 180 days, that just is not something that we can ask a child to do. So what we do think we can do, though, is the teacher says to the people exercising the right to be at home, here's my plan for the day. Here are the different lessons that I'm going to present. Or at the middle school, you know, when you're in this period class, which is at this time, we're going to introduce an activity. I'm going to explain it. You'll be able to see me doing that. And then you'll switch off and do independent, self-guided work. I think we can take it, we can all stipulate to, you have many, many very fine teachers, but many very fine teachers, their whole skill set is physically present with the children in the room. And there's stuff that just doesn't translate in this new medium. So, I don't want you to think that we're just gonna put up a couple of Khan Academy videos and say, you're on your own, buddy, go do it. But I also don't want people to think, oh, this is fabulous. My kid's never gonna leave his bedroom and he's gonna get the same, appropriate. The key term is appropriate, free appropriate public education. And so to the degree we can, we want kids together for their well-being, for their social lives, for their community sense. And those who can't for whatever reason and elect to stay home, we still want them to be connected to Keller, to Staples. Dr. Pearson-Yu, does that sound about right?
It sounds about right. And I would just say that we're continuing to work with the teachers to gather more ideas, to work out what that access will entail. It might not be as detailed as a daily schedule for every single day, but it will certainly it will certainly be district-based. It will allow us to stay true to what we believe and to our local curricula, as opposed to simply providing parents a link to the state website.
I think that's one of the hardest parts about this for parents too, is just, and just kind of from one mom to the rest of the community, understanding, trying to communicate to people that we're going to have to make decisions with incomplete and imperfect sets of information. And as hard as that is to do, you know, to just really try to kind of dig deep and, you know, count to 10 and think about what's best. Where do I feel comfortable as a parent? You know, how am I going to best support my family and my child? If that's all in, fantastic. That's the right answer for you. If it's your kids are home and maybe, you know, you're organizing other small contacts with kids in your community, that's the right answer for you. There is no right answer. There's no right or wrong. You're fully supported either way, but a decision is going to have to be made in each household before September. And we may not have a spelled out plan for that remote option. I'm not sure that families are going to get that checklist of concrete, exactly what is this going to look like, and still may need to make that choice. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, well said.
I think that's well said.
Yeah, well said. And I would say it is the number one question that I'm seeing sort of again and again is what's the distance going to look like? And I think that's one part, people who are thinking about keeping their kids home. And another part, people who are assuming that we're probably going to be in hybrid or full distance at some point, depending on what the virus does. And so there's a concern that, can we please make sure this is as good as it possibly can be? I think we could probably drill in and ask a lot of questions more specific about the distance. What I think we'll probably end up with is another special board meeting later in August, where I suspect we'll be looking for even more detail and all that. I know everybody's looking for more special board meetings, because that's just, you know, the place to be on a Thursday night. I guess it's Tuesday, Monday. Okay. Jeff, Randy, and Jenny and Gretchen, if you have any additional questions, or is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I had a quick question as it related to, I guess, the middle school. Does it look the same in Reading?
Stephanie, are you able to speak to that?
I can't say that it's identical. The Reading team is still working on their presentation for the Reading board, which hopefully will occur next week. But I know that the middle school principals have been in close contact, and there's more in common than not. I'll put it that way. I don't know if Mrs. Kaplan wants to add anything to that.
I haven't seen their final plans, but I know that they're, just as you stated, commonalities, but their staffing is different and they have different flexibilities.
And they also, I mean, basic things like they started 5th grade there, not 6th grade. So that right away changes some of the dynamics, right? Yep. Okay. Randy, did you have other questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other one is, what does distance learning look like? Or are we not sort of talking about that yet?
It's another topic that's in the category of, we are still building that ship. So what we know is that we are calling it distance learning version 2, because we want to consider all of the really helpful feedback that we received from parents, from teachers, from paraeducators, to make a stronger model in the next version. So
Right.
Part of the reason why we've made the request to have the regular early dismissals on Wednesday afternoon is to provide teachers time to take a look at the units of study that they have ahead of them for the fall, and build them in such a manner so that they could flip into a distance learning setup. And the hybrid model, to some extent, really is a distance learning model with some in-person differentiated support. So that regular time that teachers will have will be absolutely critical and invaluable in their ability to improve upon the model that we had this past spring.
And so I think we are the plan is sufficiently fleshed out that now we really want to meet with teachers and paras and say, let's think through how do you actually do a concurrent lesson. We have kids physically present and you're broadcasting, or what does distance 2.0 look like? And I actually think there's a meeting scheduled for, is it Thursday morning? Because we built the plane, but the teachers are the pilots. We got to let them, get in the cockpit and tell us if it flies or not. So.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, one of the comments I think we heard from teachers at some point after March 13th was, if we're going to be teaching from our kitchens or our living rooms or whatever, I mean, that makes it extremely challenging, and or other resources are needed. Are you contemplating that they would essentially teach from their classroom and maybe use the camera for 15 minutes to do a lesson, and then the kids do their thing, and then they pop back on a half hour later and again teach to the camera, and so that there is this interaction? Or is that just too far down the road?
If we are in full distance learning, then the schools are closed, so teachers would be home. One of the things that we hope to do differently is to equip teachers with the same way we're saying we're going to send students home with a bag of materials and supplies. We'd like to do the same thing for our teachers so that they have more teaching tools at their disposal if they need to set up their home classroom in distance learning. If health data suggests that is necessary and we need to be 100% in distance learning, then we do hope the teachers have those tools. We have estimates for a number of different tech resources. We've prioritized those purchases. Some things have been purchased, some things are sort of on the next list. Many of those tech resources are one-year subscriptions. So there's no great rush, because whenever we start the year, then they have that much more time with it.
Okay, I know other schools in the state, the teachers went to the school during the whole March, April, May, but that's a topic for another day. So, okay, that's all I had. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Randy. Jenny, Gretchen, Jeff, any extra questions? Okay.
No, I'm good. Gretchen covered it for me.
I just want to repeat for the people listening again that if I'm stating this correctly, we still don't have, because this is another question that's coming up, when and how do we switch between the models? It's still unknown because we don't have information to us from the state. So just so people understand that.
If I could just say two things to that. One is, you are all citizens of the state and these representatives work for you. So, advocate, write to them, tell them what you're thinking, engage in it. I would love for you, the Board of Ed, to have the discretion to decide if you're going to return to school full 5 days, or if you want to start a hybrid and see how it goes. You don't have that option at the moment, but the governor is, perhaps considering that.
Yeah, and let me touch on that, because I imagine this kind of information can spread and there's rumors and things. Today at a press conference, Commissioner Cardoza said, oh yeah, and districts will be able to choose which model they want. That was news to all of us, because every statement previously had said you will start in person 5 days a week, et cetera, et cetera. You will not be able to choose. We'll let you know what the triggers will be in order to switch. So that statement, and I have the exact minute, I think it's 27 minutes into the YouTube video where they say that, and I'm making sure people are aware of that. That may be they're over their skis. It may also be they're about to announce that. And I'm hitting refresh on the governor's webpage that has the list of executive orders every few minutes to say, is it there now? Is it ever coming? So people should be aware that what Tom just said is correct.
And your mandate is elementary, middle school, but I encourage you all to think elementary, middle, high school. What do we need to think about to protect all three age levels, including the kids at the high school?
Yeah. I have a couple of questions.
John, can I ask a quick one?
Please.
Just because it's connected to what you were just talking about?
Please.
I think there's a lot of questions and unknowns also about just sort of like the laundry list of thresholds of things that could trigger different activities and events. Like, what if there's a case in a classroom? What if a teacher's exposed? If a family reports that there's been an exposure in their family? Like that domino effect of, does the whole class quarantine? Does the teacher quarantine? Does the grade level quarantine? Like all those sequences, are we relying on state recommendations for that information as well? Or is that a plan that we're developing as a district? And then
Another great question. And the answer is, since there's several lawyers involved tonight, it depends. It depends on the situation. What we as administrators, school administrators have talked about all summer is when the issue goes from pedagogy to medicine, we're going to turn to your nursing coordinator, your local Department of Public Health, and the state also to make those decisions. The idea of the cohorting is that you can broaden the safety net by cohorts, grade level, school, and we are eagerly awaiting the Department of Public Health coming out with some greater clarity for us on that. They're also tasked with giving us the conditions from which would guide you to go from all in to hybrid to distance. Those are yet to be promulgated.
And so I would just add to that, that within the full plan in the health and safety section, there is a flow chart that contains a lot of useful information with respect to suspected COVID positive testing, no testing, confirmed positive, et cetera. And so there is some information in there. Yes, we're still waiting for a lot of guidance, but people may find that worth another read.
I just think it's another area where some folks are holding off, like, until I know that, I don't want to decide whether or not my kids are going back or I'm keeping them home. And again, I just, for the community to understand that it's ongoing, it's changing. You're all waiting for information from the state, and it's, you may have to, pick a path even without knowing what those data points are going to be.
So 2 quick questions and then a statement. So help with math. If a student is getting help with math, what is the process for that? If there's a student who's getting a little extra help somewhere, do we envision that as still happening either in all-in, hybrid, or distance? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Bicycles and walkers at the middle school. Is that still an option?
Haven't thought about that detail.
Okay.
Don't see why we couldn't continue that.
Okay. Thank you. Dismissal. Am I right in hearing that there are only 2 dismissal options essentially at the elementary school, and that is to car line or whatever the equivalent is, or to the buses?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no dismissal to the large gym for ASO. If ASO wants to have something there, they need to figure out how to get the kids either on the bus and then home, or to their to their parents' cars and then over to the fields.
John, there was a bullet in one of the slides, athletic programs that are obviously outside.
Yes.
They can meet their coach outside.
Yep. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. And then, so comment first, thank you. I mean, if I felt like I think the community had 25% of the information, I feel like we just got a lot more, and it was presented in a really fantastic way. And thank you to all of the presenters. I think there was especially a lot of care paid to thinking about the students' experiences. And I think that's so important. I was struck by when John Macaluso said at the beginning, this idea of straight rows, that hit me right here, that we're sort of moving backwards on some of the progress we've made to change the way that we approach the education. So it's not the way that us or our parents or grandparents were taught, but the way that's been proven to work better. And so that struck me, that the idea of coming back to normal isn't normal. It's really coming back to in person is a different way. And the extent to which, especially on the topic of keep your mask on, properly socially distance, that we're going to have to be severe. I hope that's not overstating it, but it's not the restorative justice model. It is not the three warnings for, you know, little Timmy who's turning around in his seat on the bus. It is the, we got to get your parent here to pick you up if you refuse to get your mask. And that hurts. But I think parents have an opportunity to help their students get their mindset there, to say, if I am going to be sending you back, I'm going to be sending you back with the right mindset that this part is non-negotiable, that you have to show up and do the right thing when it comes to the masks and distancing. Yeah, Sue.
Got 2 points. That we expect the posture of students to improve, because the expectations of the state seriously are sit in your seat, look straight, be masked, and don't slouch. So, I mean, it sounds so rigid and not like any environment that we wanted to create.
Right. Right. I want beanbag chairs. Yeah. Okay.
John, I have a couple more questions.
Please.
If that's okay.
Of course.
I've seen a couple of videos, teachers floating around the internet. Obviously, I know it's not our district. And there was one picture in one of the slides that was shown. It's one thing for the desks to be in rows and us to not be in groups anymore. I guess I just wanted a little bit more information about just the classroom environment in general, and how stripped down are they going to be? I mean, are kids going to be going back to bare walls and no bulletin boards? Are there, some of the furniture has been removed, but what are any of the specifics that you can offer about that in the classroom environment?
Maybe let's have Kim address that.
You know, Michael made reference of it earlier. I feel so strongly that classrooms are inviting and warm and inspiring, mostly because of the teacher, not about the decor. The teachers' classrooms are definitely down to the bare bones, but the humor, the conversation, the connections, I think that has a lot of added value to the warmth of a classroom. Teachers' wall spaces can be decorated to whatever degree the teacher wishes to do that. But I feel so strongly, I think what the teachers provide in terms of affect and relationship building far outweighs any decor.
Can I add to that? I also think it's also really important that if we are for those of us sending our kids, that we send that same message.
Yeah.
You know, that their social emotional well-being starts at home and hopefully mostly comes from home. And those values, and that if we give that out to our kids, that's the attitude they'll have when they show up. And that will be really helpful.
I'm going to respectfully disagree, not with that it's the teacher that brings the warmth to the classroom, but that I'm sending my 5-year-old into a blank white walls and desks in rows, that may not be the most conducive environment for our youngest learners. I think we need a balance of both. And I was really just wanting to know if there were actual restrictions related to health and safety concerns about whether or not there actually could be anything on the walls, or if teachers could bring in, things to the classroom, sort of what were the restrictions about that?
The walls, there's certainly no restrictions. There isn't really a lot of space for kitchen corners and dress up areas and things of that nature in terms of a kindergarten classroom. And then to the older kids who are in fifth, we did have to remove things like beanbag chairs, TVs, the reading table, because the square footage just didn't allow for it.
But if I can add, we still do have standing desks in each classroom. So there is some variability to account for comfort for students who prefer to stand and work better that way. So, the picture that I think we all saw was of uniform, but and it mostly will be uniform in terms of the furniture, but there will be some variability.
I just want to add something, because we've started to bring students back for individual testing over the summer. And again, the circumstances are very different. The teachers are wearing masks, the students are wearing masks. And I have to say, after observing a couple of the interactions between the students and the teachers, they're looking beyond the mask, as Kim said, that human connection. So I'm beginning to see, the students that are connecting with those teachers one-on-one, and they forget that the barrier's there after a while. They forget the mask is there because of that human connection, and I think that is something that's the added value in this model as well.
John?
Yes.
One question. What are we doing in the area of assessment to know where our kids are before we start trying to teach them? I mean, how do you build a curriculum that's going to benefit the children if you don't know where they are to begin with?
Dr. Pearson, do you want to?
Sure.
Yep.
Initial units of study will include a fair amount of review for all students. The state recommends, and we absolutely agree with the idea that when we re-engage our students, we want them to feel successful. We want them to feel happy about being at school. And after the first handful of weeks that they're back, we will dig into diagnostic assessments and then intervene accordingly. So a lot of assessment will occur in the initial weeks, but it will be informal in nature. We're not going to sit kids down to
sort
of pressurized situations. But yes, absolutely, we'll be creating those baseline diagnostic assessments and then moving forward with the results.
And how much time do you think it'll take to be able to do that in a less pressurized way?
Well, the guidance is that we are supposed to wait for approximately the first month. So the information I provided to principals is to begin that in the beginning of October.
So it's going to be important to try to maintain open schools with students in them. Otherwise, it's going to be awfully darn hard to make any kind of assessments in terms of where they are.
Well, we could still do it in a hybrid.
Yes, I agree.
Right. If we go full distance, yes, then it will certainly be a challenge. I mean, we can only hope that we have a little bit more notice the next time around so that we could prepare better.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jenny. Yeah.
I was just wondering if any additional outdoor furniture has been purchased. Chairs, picnic tables, coverings, just to give some additional options for teachers and faculty to bring, or specialists or even the paras to bring kids outside, if it's, just to give them those different spaces.
Money's tight. We have ordered a 30-foot basically wedding tent for the middle school. We talked today about purchasing one for the elementary school that you could set up between the houses, just to have some cover and some space. But no, we haven't ordered outside furniture per se.
Is it something we can consider moving forward, or
you'd have to hear from Mr. Rice? I think we're trying to use your resources judiciously.
Good, and certainly something we can. I think we are scheduled to hear from Mr. Rice in not too long in today's agenda, and the intent will be that we'll have another opportunity to have these conversations later in August. Any additional questions before we move on to our next agenda item? Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Quick time check. We are at 2.5 hours. I know that after the 6.5 hour session, I received a gentle nudge to, hey, maybe consider a bio break in there. Sorry. So I want to check. We want to take a quick recess, quick 2-minute recess, and give people a break, and then jump back in with our Board Education Committee reports. I would estimate we have about 30 minutes more of content.
Sure.
Good for a quick break? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Let's take that 2-minute recess, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. It's 10:04 right now.
Hey, John, if I can make a recommendation, the next time we do this, I'd like you to ask a trivia question so that we can all think about it while we're gone. And when we come back, you can, tell us the answer.
This is the first year we haven't had the trivia bee, and I got like 40,000 questions that I'm ready to ask. So that
All right.
I'm game.
Fair enough.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Board of Education committee reports. So superintendent search. Randy, would you mind providing a quick update on where we're at with the superintendent search?
Sure. The brief history, I think we had a total of 30 applications that we received. We had a first round of interviews with 6 candidates. Went over 2 evenings the beginning of last week. We are now down to 3 finalists, and Wednesday evening in front of not only the subcommittee, but all 3 board members are all invited to participate. There'll be an extended Q&A for each of the 3 candidates. And then hopefully we'll be presenting to the tri-board our recommendation.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions for Randy? Okay. Negotiating committee, this is quick. We have two big conversations that we'll need to have. One is about impact bargaining. That is the impact of the reopening plan and conversations that the negotiating committee, which is made up of Jeff Parker, Randy Hicks, and myself, that we will have on that topic. And we will also be having conversations about the union contract, the regular teachers union contract that is coming up very soon. So we are getting into those conversations in the next few weeks, and we'll certainly be providing more information at subsequent meetings.
John, can I ask a question?
Yes.
This goes back to the last time the negotiations came up, but when is the composition of the negotiating committee going to change or be up for new members?
So the committee itself is, it can't be a quorum, right? Itself. So we're limited to 2 members and the board chair. The 2 members, I think, can be changed at any time based on the board chair's appointment. I think because of all the great many things that are going on, we're favoring the sort of experience that exists today, but we can, if we had a need to have additional negotiation conversations with the unions next year or halfway through, October, we can at any point choose new negotiating committee members.
I don't know that a discussion, I don't know when this is an appropriate discussion, but I had asked to participate on the negotiating committee previously. And I feel like this one just keeps kind of getting swept under the rug. So I don't know if it needs to be an offline conversation. But this has been a kind of the membership has remained the same for quite some time. And while I respect experience, I also think that we need to move things around a little bit and give other people an opportunity to participate at that level in those things.
Yeah,
as well.
I appreciate that feedback, and I would say this will be my first experience sort of going through it, and I am spending a lot of time trying to get as smart as I can and get as much information about the way the process could and should work from Randy and from Jeff, and learning by way of my own experience. And I think we'll be more sort of primed for giving Randy and Jeff an opportunity to break from this and give other members opportunities in the not too distant future. So I absolutely welcome an offline conversation on the topic for sure.
Well, when is the next when would that be? I mean, I think it's going to far exceed the terms of some folks that are on the board.
Yeah, I don't have the entire schedule of all the unions in front of me right now, but we can talk about that.
And given the current composition, and you've mentioned this at other meetings previously, and I'm looking at the clock, I'm trying to not drag this on too long, but it's all male representation at this point, as you had mentioned previously.
Yep.
And you have the 3 members that are not on the negotiating committee currently are the 3 who have education experience,
right?
Who have worked in schools, who are teachers, who have that background, especially with Devin coming on board. So if we can, I think that's an important conversation to have moving forward, that there be some shift in the makeup of the people that are meeting with our teachers and our paras and our union groups.
Yeah, and I think you make a lot of good points, and I think I have the authority as the board chair to change the composition of the committee, and I think we can have some sort of additional offline conversations and sort of talk about the not too distant future.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Reports. We have 3 sections here: assistant superintendent, then building administrative, then district administrative. We'll start with you, Dr. Pearson-Ugal.
I will be brief. So I'd like to just provide a brief update regarding the results of the survey. And again, to restate what Dr. McMorran said earlier, which is that while we encourage all parents to read the plan, complete the survey, and try and make their best informed decision. The decisions are not binding. We're just trying to begin the process of creating our bus runs, get a sense of the number of parents who will be dropping off in the morning, and be sure that our classrooms are balanced to the extent possible. So that's why the information is so necessary early on. We have extended the survey deadline as well. A lot of parents had questions in particular about the temporary learning from home. And in Reading, some parents will not get additional information that's school specific until next week. So the deadline has been extended through next Wednesday. But as of this morning, approximately 56% of Easton families in particular have responded to the survey, and about 84% of families say that they will send their children to school in person, with about 15% saying they will not attend, and maybe 2 children in total who will be homeschooled. So that's the information we have at this point. Transportation is much closer to a 50-50 split as we anticipated. And there are definitely some families who have reached out and asked for some additional social and emotional support. So I'm really pleased that people are asking for the support. We want to provide that. We want this information. And I will encourage everyone to please do fill in the frequently asked question document when you receive it. We will be reviewing it daily, trying to compile common questions and getting answers out as soon as we possibly can. A number of parents have also emailed me directly. I'm doing my best to stay on top of those emails and really try and respond to every single email that comes in. So if you have a question, please do ask the question, and also certainly read the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Pearson-Ugal? Very good. Thank you. Building administrative reports.
Kim, you want to go first or second tonight?
I would like to go first. I've been busy hiring staff. We have hired a new PE teacher, full-time PE teacher. We have hired the long-term sub in grade 4. We have a teacher on maternity leave from the very beginning of the year to the Thanksgiving recess. We've hired the full-time kindergarten teacher. We have hired a new office assistant to replace Jan Petronella, who retired on June 17th. We had an internal candidate named Komal Kulkarni, who had been this last couple of years, been a basis para who is extraordinary. Her background as a legal assistant, I think, will just serve us so well in the main office. So what's left to hire are recess supervisors and cafeteria supervisors.
Hey, Kim, quick question. What's the count in kindergarten so far?
70 are enrolled today, fully enrolled. Open Choice have filled one of the 3 lottery seats, and the one that's filled is the younger sister of one of their older Open Choice students. So we still have 2 more that they are very confident will fill. And we still have about 20 packets that were picked up that have not yet been returned.
And is that normal?
No.
Okay.
What do you mean? What is that? No, it's not. What's not
At this time of year, would we normally have 20 unreturned packets, or usually would all of those have been returned?
Right. I think, to be honest with you, I think a lot of parents were waiting for meetings like this,
yep,
greater detail about what kindergarten is going to look like and school-based decisions.
Yep.
Kim, you say you have 70 confirmed kindergartens. We're not talking about preschool.
No, just kindergarten. Wasn't that the question, John?
Yes, it was. It was.
And so you think you'll end up with 90, Kim,
No,
or
I
no?
do not think we'll end up with 90. I think we'll probably have 10 more kids.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're very confident in the plan. As well, the kindergarten classrooms are larger than the 1st through 5th grade classrooms because they accommodate the bathroom. But I think looking at the photograph of the bathroom today, looking at some of what we put together in terms of photographs and presentation, I think there's going to be greater confidence in the parts of our kindergarten parents. So I feel like 10, and that doesn't include the 3 open choice children that I referenced earlier.
Kim, I was looking at your starting lineup, understanding that the kindergartners and the preschoolers are not here.
Right.
And it looks like you're down 4 in 1st grade, 2 in 2nd, 3 in 3rd, flat in 4th, and 2 in 5th. Do you feel confident that that'll be that those will be the accurate numbers come August 31st?
No, I still feel similar to my kindergarten guess. I still think there's some families who have moved to Easton who wanted to hear a little bit more about the plan and will make a decision. We have gotten a lot of calls from families from out of state who wanted to know more.
But these fewer numbers, are they confirmed?
Fewer numbers.
These are families that have left, or families that have decided to homeschool, or.
I want to say all of them have moved, but I could be wrong that there's one who opted for homeschooling.
I got you.
I'm not confident on the one, but
Okay.
moved out of state or out of town, obviously.
Well, what's so odd about this is you're showing, let's see, 4, 6, 7, 8, 11 fewer students. And in Keller, we have increases of, it looks like about 9. And it's just unusual that it would be a break like that where there's so many fewer in the elementary school, and then there's so many more in the middle school. You generally see the reverse.
Yeah, very true.
Is it possible to register for your kid for middle school and not elementary school? Like maybe the families don't know if they want to put their kid in elementary school, but they're okay putting their kid in middle school. I don't know.
No, but to be honest with you,
this is an unusual year. It's a COVID year. We see people moving from cities and studio apartments, and I can easily conceive of people saying, Tommy is 12 now, it's okay for us to move. Whereas, the younger, the younger they are, the easier it is to have a cohort. So I think there's a role to be played there. And let's see what the rest of August brings you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to be very accurate. I would have been shocked if Tom knew the exact moment that everything got ordered, but we haven't yet placed the order for this tent. Scott and I need to meet with Park and Rec to discuss location and also check with the town if we need any permits for that. So hopefully we'll get that order in shortly for the tent. Just want to clarify. We've had a couple of busy situations the last couple of weeks. One was very unexpected. My heart stopped when I opened my email and saw that our newly hired 8th grade math teacher resigned for personal reasons. I do what I do best when I need something done fast, and I called Vicky. She posted it immediately. And then we were very fortunate once again, to find a teacher with 4 years experience of teaching coming from Shelton. His name is Doug Ackley, and we really lucked out. So I'm happy to report that. Also, we are still on the lookout. Chief Doyle had to repost the position for our SSO. I had announced in a previous meeting that we had hired an SSO, but that's not done yet. Apparently, police policemen in certain unions are restricted to work more than 90 days for us. So the last candidate was not a viable candidate at the time. And so we reposted it, and hopefully we'll have someone in a couple of weeks. Finally, our nurse is expecting a baby in mid-August, but it's that great, always great vibes at Keller. What can I tell you? We found a very experienced nurse who's going to step in and help us out. So she'll start in mid-August. Her name is Jennifer Conley. She has subbed in our buildings before. When she's done with us, by Thanksgiving time, when Sarah Gregor comes back, Jennifer's going to go work over at, on the Reading side. She's a very experienced nurse, pediatric nurse, very sharp, and we're excited that she's able to step in and help us out. And that would be my report for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Sue? You're on mute, Jeff.
Sue, I have one. I know we don't have money in the budget for extracurriculars, but certainly that was a point of conversation for all of us at the time that we had to make that decision, with the hope that maybe some things would change or we could bring back some of the items if we couldn't bring back all of them. It doesn't seem like it. The opportunity exists to do extracurricular activities this year, things like plays and volleyball and
ultimate frisbee.
Ultimate frisbee. I'll admit I get a kick out of that one. But so is it out of the realm? Should we just put that in our back pocket and worry about it during the next budget cycle, or am I on the wrong track here?
Jeff, you know how I feel about the importance of extracurricular for students' development, but I think it's a blessing in disguise, because during COVID, there would be so many activities that I couldn't even imagine starting up again. The fact that we don't have to worry or think about that at this time, when we have all these hundreds of other things to worry about, I'm actually finding it to be a bit of a blessing, although I'm sad for the children that they won't have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to district administrative, we'll be hearing from our finance director and then director of special education. Scott?
Hey, so I'll start with the budget object summary. We don't typically meet during the summer, so typically you see the end of the fiscal year more in the September timeframe. So I'll just give you a brief orientation to what you have in front of you. So this is a couple of weeks out from the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. What happens at this point is basically everything in regards to new spending is frozen to the extent that it is encumbered. Meaning if it's not in the very right-hand column where it says encumbered, then it's not an expenditure that's going to happen. I'll also just draw your attention to, on the very first page in the very upper right, we move all of the payroll activity into a single line at this point. So that entry encumbrance of a little over $500,000, which covers our contractual summer pays over the July and August timeframe, really covers all of the payroll lines, but we sweep it all into one place for purposes of that final spend down. At this point, then, we're largely awaiting payrolls to complete running and for final bills to arrive. So everything that's been encumbered has been encumbered because there's an expectation of an expense that's going to come in to match it. They may or may not all match the amounts that have been set aside. To the extent that they are lower than what we've encumbered, then that would be additional unexpended funds that would fall to the bottom line. To the extent that they're higher, we pay the portion out of the 1920 money that's been encumbered, and the balance of it would have to be covered by this current year's budget, the 2021 budget. So we have to be pretty accurate in our June 30th posture because it really establishes what happens for those $1920 for the balance of it. The punchline here is that the current report reads about $440,000 unexpended. That number will increase. We don't encumber expected paybacks to the budget, and the biggest payback that I'm awaiting that is related to 1920 is the reimbursement from First Student for the portion of the transportation that we had prepaid, but that we have coming back to us. That's on the order of about $60,000. So I think that we're looking at a final unexpended in the range of 500,000, which is really what we had talked about going into our last board meeting in June. At that time, the board finalized the 2021 budget, but also made a number of decisions in regards to authorized expenditures from 1920 to the tune of approximately 100K, bringing what was at that time outlook to be a 600K unexpended down to about 500. And I think that's exactly where we're going to be, give or take either side of 500K. So that's what I would cover on the budget object summary. I will go to the health insurance next, unless there are any questions on the budget object.
Scott, what would be your expectation when this is going to finally roll up and be done by the end of August?
It should be by the end of August. Payrolls will complete by then, and so then what we end up getting down to is final invoices. And some people bill later than others. Sometimes we need to chase things because things have gotten lost or what have you. But end of August is my target. It's not uncommon for it to lapse into September.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
For the employee benefits, the health insurance report, you'll see here we do have the final June numbers in, so we have the full year view now of 1920. The final balance at the end of June is a little over $700,000, which is exactly where I had predicted that it would be in our June meeting. Our June actual claims came in materially lower than this year's claims year to date, which was consistent with what we were seeing in those last final months with the COVID shutdown. So we've completed the year at a little over 700K reserve balance. I think that puts the board in a strong position for coverage in anticipation of higher claims now coming in the July-August timeframe than we might normally see, with the expectation being that people were finally able to get back out and having medical services performed. And that's what I had to cover.
Excellent. Any questions for Scott?
Scott, I think for 2021 we have 266,000 more that we've added to the budget for healthcare for next year.
I would have to check that, but I would say you're probably right. You're talking about the budgeted amount for
2021, and what we added to the budget to come up with our final number for next year. I thought we added 266.
You probably remember better than I.
That sounds right to me as well, Jeff.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Rice had a board meeting, a pension meeting before this meeting, if we're done with him, can we bid him good night and sleep tight?
Yes, and I don't think we'll all be very far behind you, but thank you. Thank you very much.
Good night, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Hello, Jen.
Hi. So I will be brief, but we've been doing some hiring. So we've been able to hire a part-time psychologist, which is being shared with Reading Elementary. She's a crackerjack coming out of Bedford University, so we're very excited to have her join us. For our new junior bridges program, we've been able to hire a special education teacher and for our basis program. So our certified positions have been filled. At this point, we still need to fill maybe some paraprofessional openings, and we will be trying to fill those positions shortly. The board report that I have is a new format, so it looks very different. And so basically what we will be trying to do moving forward is to give you a comparative of where we were last year and where we are this year. So we can see every month, what the change is from who's been classified, who's outplaced, because we know that special education is the unknown variables. So we just want to be transparent as to what the numbers were from last year to this year. And on the second page, we will also be giving you a monthly enrollment update of how many students we have in the individual grade levels. From preschool to pre-kindergarten, all the way up to 8th grade. And then we will also be providing a tabulation of the different classification. I know that A, U, D, D, that we get you a key. So just to give you an idea of the different disabilities that we serve. So the format is different and it's going to take a little while to get used to, but I think the information is more concise.
It's excellent. I love that. I noticed the format change and thought it was very nice and clear. Thank you.
Jen, I've already gotten used to it. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, if there's anything that you want me to add to the format moving forward, please just feel free to reach out, and we can certainly make those changes along the way.
Thank you.
That's all that I have.
Excellent work with it.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Thank you very much. That leaves us with public comment. If you would like to make public comment, please wave at us or raise your hand in the participant window if you can. And we'll give everyone a moment to indicate whether or not they'd like to make public comment. Okay, I see Carolyn Oppenheimer, and I'm going to ask to unmute.
That's close. Oppenheim, Carolyn Oppenheim, 25.
I'm sorry. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, whatever, John. I just want to make a note about the governor's statement this afternoon about, I know you had mentioned it and it was very late in the game, but I hope it will be considered about looking at a hybrid model. Going back to school full time is a very more so for my high schooler. I know that this is not in that kind of not that group, but for my high schooler, I'm concerned because of the moving around. But for all of them, a little concerned about sending back 5 days a week all the time and wearing a mask. And I have now about 70 masks in my house, trying to figure out which one they'll wear all day. I just want to make note that it's important to at least consider that option. Really, that was it. And thank everyone for all that you have all done. This has been a marathon and very, very exhausting for all of us. I'm sure more so for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I'm sorry, I forgot to ask your street.
25 Hunting Ridge Road.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll move on to board member comment. I'll go through. Jeff, any comment?
Yes, I've got two things. One, I think this is really Tom's last meeting with us, which I find unbelievable. And while I'm disappointed for us, I'm very happy for him, and I wish him all the best. Secondly is this whole issue of knowing where our children are academically when they return to school, I think is just critical. I certainly appreciate wanting the slow do sort of the slow dance to get everyone comfortable, but I do worry about COVID hitting and pushing us out into distant learning, and then not be able to have the opportunity to find out where our kids really are. So to the extent that we can move that along as fast as we can, I think it will serve our children, and that's my thought on that issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Gretchen? No comment? Randy?
No, I'm all good. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Jenny?
First, I just wanted to say, Kim, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't offend you before about the whole environment back and forth. You know, I have absolutely nothing but the most respect for all of you. But I just want to reiterate again that I do think that every aspect of our kids' environment this year should be weighed equally, especially since we have newcomers who have never been in the school before. Our youngest learners haven't had the opportunity to have a proper orientation, to meet one another, to meet their teachers, to walk in the classrooms. And this is for some of them going to be their very first glimpse of school. So to that end, not to lessen the importance of the person standing in front of the room, of course they are the most important, but I do think all factors are going to matter this year, from, you know, the font you use on the signage to the verbiage of the announcements that are made, reminding kids about distancing. I just think no detail should be, you know, dismissed or lessened. And just, Tom, run like the wind. We will miss you, but go, enjoy, take care of your family. Thank you so much for everything. And to Sue and Annie, I love the middle school plan. I'm very excited to see what happens with the block scheduling. I hope you'll take opportunities throughout the year to get parent and student feedback about the idea of block versus a traditional rotating schedule. And I love the enthusiasm for seeing the silver linings and looking for the positives. Just think we need to do that the whole year for this to work for everybody. And
Yeah.
Jen, really quickly, thank you for so much detail put out there in the plan. I've spoken with a couple of parents who are seem like they were maybe making decisions based on whether or not their children with special needs could wear masks. And I was pleased to see that that doesn't necessarily need to be a determining factor for a family. So I hope that and encourage those parents and families to reach out to you for those individual conversations. So thank you very much for all of your time.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Thank you so much to all of our administrators who spent so much time and effort. It is clear that you've been thoughtful about this and careful. And once again, I find myself at the end of a board meeting saying thank you for all of you, all that you do. This community, you know, I think cannot thank you enough for all of the great work that you've done. And you know, I think we've gotten a long way down the field with, you know, what's going to give people that sense of, I understand what's going to happen. I feel comfortable moving forward. And thank you for that. I'll finish by just saying a last thank you to Dr. McMorran. Thank you. I know I've said before that you are a hero of mine. And I think that is, you know, in no small part because you've helped me to grow. And I think if I think about anything that an educator does that's more important, it's, you know, it is just helping people to move from where they are to what they can be. And you've been a huge part of me trying to be better. And so thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I do want to thank the Easton board as an entity and each of you individually. 5 years ago, the very first board comment that I experienced as a new rookie superintendent was when Vita Pesce turned to me and asked me if I had an opinion about automatic weapons in the town of Easton, which wasn't on the agenda, and it certainly threw me for a loop. But I deeply admire the collaborative spirit of this Easton Board of Ed. I think you have always kept the kids at the center of your conversations. I admire the way that you can disagree in very respectful ways. And I think that collaboratively, you've provided a great service to the boys and girls of Easton and their community. And I encourage you to continue that culture. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Gretchen. I mean, we can hang out here longer if you want. Gretchen, and second.
Second.
Thank you, Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very much. That is it at 10:43. Thank you very much, everyone.
Night.
Right.